Chapter 1324. In a messy battlefield, a second living mechanical deity was born out of thin air. The weapons and equipment on it were almost identical to Han Zhao's mechanical deity. It was like a replica made with him as the blueprint. At this time, this fake mechanical deity was expressionless as it confronted Han Zhao from afar. Powerful energy waves were constantly being released. This scene shocked countless galactic residents, and their shocked gazes focused on Wernos. Another new beyond grade A has appeared? I don't think I've seen this person before. What ability is this? It looks very powerful. I know this person. He's the high priest of the arcane church. Many galactic residents widened their eyes, and a faint hope was born in their hearts. Among the beyond grade as, Wernos was an anomaly. His past achievements could be counted on one hand, and he had been living in seclusion for many years. The arcane church had never publicized his name, so his presence was not high in the outside world. If not for specially checking the information, some ordinary people might not even know that such a person existed in the universe. However, in the beyond grade A circle, this guy was recognized as the strongest. Seeing Wernos appear, Olu heaved a sigh of relief and was a little angry. You're finally willing to make a move. I thought you would continue to watch. Good Lord, we've worked so hard to fight Han Zhao for 6 days and 6 nights. We're exhausted, but you only made a move now. Did you see the opportunity and deliberately come up to turn the tide? Wernos glanced at the many direct members and sighed. It's been hard on you guys. I'm enough here. You guys go and rest. It's already like this, and you still want to fight him one-on-one. Claudia immediately frowned. I don't like to bully others with numbers. Wernos shook his head. You think we like it? Claudia frowned. This is a mission given to us by the higher-ups. If you participate in the siege, we have the greatest chance of taking down Black Star. You still want to fight one-on-one even now? Aren't you being too unreasonable? Wernos looked at him and said calmly, just now, the higher-ups gave me a death order and asked me to help. However, I told them that unless it's a one-on-one battle, I won't participate. They agreed to my request. If you have any objections, you can report them to the leader of the Red Empire. If you don't need help now, I'll go back and wait. Claudia frowned and opened the channel to communicate with the dynasty's upper echelons. He took a deep look at Wernos and flew toward the main ship without saying anything. The others also received the notice from the higher-ups. They glanced at Wernos with complicated expressions and left the battlefield. In an instant, apart from the wreckage that filled the sky, only Han Zhao and Wernos were left on the battlefield. Han Zhao had been watching from the sidelines, and when he saw the other direct descendants leave, his eyes flashed. Your ability is interesting. Wernos did not respond to this sentence. He changed the topic and slowly said, I've observed you for 6 to 7 days. I'm afraid you've already stepped into the threshold of a higher level. I'm not a person who likes to fight. If possible, I really don't want to fight you, but this time, Han Zhao waved his hand and interrupted the other party. We don't have much of a relationship, so you don't have to explain anything to me. Many people say that you're recognized as the strongest beyond grade A. I've always wanted to fight you. As he spoke, he turned to look at the other living mechanical deity that seemed to be carved out of the same mold and narrowed his eyes. I have to say, with such an ability, you do have the capital to be the strongest, but an imitation is still an imitation. When Wernos used his ability earlier, Han Zhao's interface also triggered a battle notification, showing that he was affected by an ability called God's Incarnation, Enlighten. Although it took effect, it did not cause him any damage or abnormal status. Han Zhao had planned ahead. Before the mechanical race's territory was surrounded, he had already expected that he might fight Wernos. Therefore, he had asked Kasui and the others about this person and knew that Enlighten Gods was one of Wernos' abilities. He could materialize some conceptualized gods into powerful entities called God's Incarnation. The God's Incarnation was an independent entity that was separated from the main body. It was usually called the God's Incarnation and had all kinds of abilities that existed in this god, but not all of them. The strength and number of abilities were not only related to Wernos' personal strength, but also the size and degree of faith of the believers who believed in this god. However, the target of Werno's transformation also included everything that had divinity. Peak beyond grade, as who had activated the gods, trade transformation were naturally among them. When the target of transformation was not a concept, but an actual entity, he could directly inherit most of the strength and abilities of the target, not requiring the faith of believers. According to the upper echelons of the association, if they fought Wernos, the first stage would be to deal with a mirror-like self. At the same time, they would have to deal with Wernos and the other gods' incarnations. This was one of the reasons why he was recognized as the strongest. His combat strength was extremely flexible, and the stronger he was, the stronger he became. What was even more perverse was that if a god's incarnation that existed in a physical body was killed by an external force, the damage would be reflected back to the transformed body. This meant that when a peak beyond grade 8 killed the mirror-like self, it was equivalent to dealing a second blow to himself. Some of the ancient ones told him a secret. A long time ago, the success rate of Wernos enlightening a god was limited. Relying on his own ability, he did not succeed every time. However, Werno's ability was a match made in heaven with the arcane church. He had obtained many related universal treasures from the arcane church and established a deep soul connection. The success rate of enlightening a god was constant at 100%. In terms, it was directly skipping the judgment process. Among these universal treasures, there was also a core treasure that the arcane church regarded as the national treasure. It could be said to be the cornerstone of ethereal's unification of all the religions in the galactic society. Wernos was perfectly compatible with it, as if he was born for it. The only good news was that the combat information showed that after he was enlightened once, he would be immune for a long time. This meant that Wernos would not be able to continuously enlighten the same target in a short period of time. Furthermore, there was a certain limit to the duration and number of God's incarnations. Even with Han Zhao's experience, he had to admit that Werno's ability system was extremely OP. It was almost like he was cheating. Scary. This ability is a bit like an alternative character summon card. The level of shamelessness is almost on par with mine. The corners of Han Zhao's mouth twitched, and his heart skipped a beat. From the looks of it, they were all professional cheaters. Today would probably be the peak battle between cheaters. All kinds of information flashed through his mind, but Han Zhao's movements were not slow. He gathered the remaining mechanical army and attacked Wernos. At the same time, he controlled the mechanical deity to charge forward, and the heavy spear stabbed out quickly. At this time, another heavy mechanical spear appeared from the side and intercepted Han Zhao's attack. The tips of the spears collided. Bang! An intense psionic shockwave exploded, and the two heavy spears were in a stalemate. Your opponent is me. The fake mechanical deity, with Werno's face, spoke calmly, and dark blue lightning flashed all over its body. Yo, you can talk. Han Zhao's eyes flashed, and he suddenly twisted the spear in his hand. The heavy spear in his hand spun rapidly, and a huge amount of energy burst out, instantly bouncing off the tip of the opponent's spear. Then, like a black dragon drilling through a hole, it pierced into the fake mechanical deity's chest. Compressed psionic energy shot out from the tip of the spear, and blood, flesh, and metal splattered everywhere. At this time, the fake mechanical deity immediately counterattacked, as if it did not feel any pain, and the heavy spear stabbed back. Seeing this, Han Zhao instantly pulled out his spear to block. A dazzling electric arc exploded at the point of contact, and the surging force pushed Han Zhao away. Han Zhao looked up and saw a wound that almost went through the fake mechanical deity's chest. It was extremely tragic, but the next moment, the flesh and machinery around the wound began to wriggle and grow, slowly recovering. Fisk, as expected. Like me, you're an unkillable cockroach. Han Zhao clicked his tongue. The super recovery ability of his main body was also discovered by this god incarnation. The fake mechanical deity also had an indestructible body, and only a few of its abilities were not copied. Although its combat power was much lower than his main body's, it definitely exceeded the 100,000 energy rank. It was even stronger than first tier beyond grade, as like Claudi and Ulu. It definitely had the ability to fight with him. At the same time, the injured apostle weapons led the remaining mechanical army to attack Wernos himself, pouring down like a rain of light. Wernos calmly put his hands together, and colorful spiritual lights appeared on the surface of his body. They quickly enlarged and turned into glowing patterns, forming a huge protective shield that protected him from the rain of light. This time, he opened his palm, and 8 platinum spiritual lights appeared and jumped into his mouth. The next moment, 8 god incarnations of different forms separated from Wernos' main body. They all emitted powerful high-level beyond grade A fluctuations and charged toward the mechanical army from all directions. I'll have to sacrifice again when I get back. Wernos shook his head. Summoning 8 god incarnations at once made his heart ache. A few days ago, when he received the emergency summons, he had collected the divinity of more than 10 god statues in the Temple of 10,000 Gods and stored it in the ethereal nation weapon in his body. If he wanted to fight, he could directly summon the god incarnations. If he could not fight, he could still put the divinity back. Only he knew that every time he summoned the god incarnations of the god statues in the Temple of 10,000 Gods, it would consume the divinity that had been stored in the statues for a long time. He would not be able to summon the same god incarnation again in a short period of time. Only long-term sacrifices and prayers could restore the divinity of the statues and summon them again. The combat power of the god incarnations also depended on the density of the divinity in the statues. After summoning them once, he would have to start accumulating them from zero, which was very troublesome and time-consuming. To him, the Temple of 10,000 Gods that he guarded all year round was an arsenal, and the god statues that contained divinity were ammunition. However, he preferred to treat the Temple of 10,000 Gods as farmland. Every god statue was a growing crop that needed to be carefully taken care of every day. Unless it was necessary, he did not want to harvest any crops. He knew himself well. With his own ability, he could not easily enlighten 8 god incarnations. However, the ethereal nation weapon had long become one with him. Even if he did not use it actively, the passive buff of perfect compatibility had already raised his enlightening ability to an unbelievable level. Han Xiao narrowed his eyes and slammed his body into the fake mechanical deity, pushing it away. Drill-like machines shot out from his waist and bit the fake mechanical deity's abdomen like charging cabins. The psionic decay module hidden inside immediately operated, absorbing the fake mechanical deity's energy in large amounts. While the other party was restrained, Han Xiao suddenly turned around and threw a spear at Wernos' main body, planning to behead him. Seeing this, Wernos squeezed out 2 more streams of divinity. This time, the 2 god incarnations that poked their heads out did not materialize. Instead, they melted and covered Wernos' body. His aura suddenly soared, and his hands wrapped in dazzling energy were placed in front of him, not dodging at all. The next moment, the heavy spear swept out horizontally. The difference in size between the 2 sides was huge, and it was like a piece of land was slapped over. Clang! A shockwave burst out, but the result was completely different from Claudi, who was sent flying by the attack. Wernos' hands did not change, and he did not move at all. He did not even retreat half a step in the vacuum, but the heavy mechanical spear stopped. It was as if an ant had stopped a collapsed mountain. It was extremely shocking. Glancing at Han Xiao, Wernos did not say anything. He only retreated at a leisurely pace, as if he did not care about the attack just now and was not worried about Han Xiao's pursuit at all. It really can't move. As expected of the church's national treasure, Han Xiao frowned. According to the insider, the ethereal national treasure had the characteristic of unbreakable, and its resistance was shockingly high. These abilities were also shared with Wernos. The strength of the gods chosen was largely due to the ethereal national treasure. Fighting with this guy was not just a battle between individuals, but also the highest technological achievement of a universal civilization. Therefore, when beyond grade as fought, Wernos was rarely included because it was simply bullying. At this time, the fake mechanical deity broke free from the control and pounced forward to launch a series of fierce attacks, making Han Zhao's mechanical deity unable to escape. After 6 days and 6 nights of fighting, Han Zhao was not completely unscathed. His mechanical army also suffered heavy casualties, and most of them were sent to the Dimension Factory for repair. At this time, only 20 to 30% of his army was left, and most of them had been abandoned and modified several times. Facing the lively Wernos and the gods' incarnations, it was extremely difficult. Han Zhao dealt with the crazy attacks of the fake mechanical deity. He glanced at the bad situation and narrowed his eyes. Wernos lives up to his name. Looks like this is going to be a tough battle. Luckily, I held back. I know how to steal men, too. On the main ship of the 3 universal civilizations, Claudia and the other direct beyond grade, as had already treated their wounds. They gathered on the bridge and watched the fierce battle between Black Star and Wernos. Seeing that Wernos was evenly matched with Black Star, who had beaten them to a pulp, everyone felt a little upset. How many years has it been since I last saw a God's chosen fight? What terrifying strength! Gyuzer stroked his beard and sighed. If I had a universal treasure like the ethereal national treasure, I would be this strong too. Olu's tone was sour. The prerequisite is that the Radiant Federation can build it. Francisco shrugged. Who are you looking down on? Verena snorted unwillingly. The group chatted casually, which lightened the heavy atmosphere a little. Olu turned around and saw that Claudia was standing by the side without saying anything. He could not help but say, "We've exhausted Black Star for 6 days and 6 nights, and Wernos only came out to fight now. Maybe he wants to reap the fruits of victory. If he defeats Black Star, not only will he take all the fame for himself, but he will also use us as stepping stones. Won't he be angry?" Claudia glanced at him expressionlessly and said indifferently, "I don't care about these details. I just want to complete the mission given by the higher-ups. As for who defeated Black Star in the end, it doesn't matter. TSK, if word gets out that Wernos took care of an opponent that we couldn't deal with alone, it'll be very embarrassing. You don't care about your face, but I do." Olu clenched his teeth. Claudia looked at him strangely. "You were defeated by Black Star in a one-on-one battle. You've already lost all your face. What are you thinking about?" F***CK. Olu still wanted to be stubborn, but at this moment, something unexpected happened. Suddenly, Black Star in the field burst out with an even more shocking aura. The energy reading skyrocketed at a speed visible to the naked eye, creating a new record every second. The output of Black Star's mechanical deity sword. The next second, the enormous body of the replica was thrown out, crashing into the formation of the 3 universal civilizations fleet, crushing row after row of battleships, creating sparks and lightning along the way. The apostle weapons and mechanical army seemed to have taken a huge dose of tonic. Their firepower skyrocketed, and the god incarnations that were originally charging back and forth seemed to have fallen into a swamp. They could not move at all, and their injuries increased rapidly. Then, Han Zhao turned around and smashed down with a spear. One of the god incarnations seemed to have evaporated into thin air and was shattered into pieces. It was instantly killed and exploded into light fragments. Wernos' calm expression disappeared instantly. The sudden change shocked Claudia, Olu, and the other direct beyond grade as. Everyone's attention was immediately attracted by Han Zhao. Everyone's eyes widened in shock. Black Star's energy rank skyrocketed in an extremely short amount of time, and he could still unleash it. He was clearly holding back. At this moment, everyone suddenly realized something. They felt a chill in their hearts, and they were suddenly stunned. We worked so hard for 6 days and 6 nights, but we still couldn't force him to use his full strength. Vertex. Chapter 1325. Boom. Lightning bolts shot out crazily, circling around Han Zhao like dragons. The mechanical spear changed its direction and turned into a thick bolt of lightning. It pierced out again and attacked another red god avatar that was wearing armor and holding a shield. This red god incarnation was restrained by the apostle weapon and could not dodge in time. It hurriedly put up a defensive posture and knocked the side of the shield with its warhammer. The surface of the shield immediately glowed, and the image of a shield-like shield popped out, magnified thousands of times, blocking in front of it. Crack! The heavy spear crashed into the shield, and the seemingly indestructible shield instantly shattered into pieces. The shock wave instantly spread out, as if there was a glass-shattering explosion in everyone's mind. A beam of light shot out from the tip of the spear, and with one strike, half of the body of this god incarnation was swept away. At this time, Wernos flashed over from afar. He focused his strength on one point and elbowed the tip of the spear to avoid causing more damage. He then pulled the heavily injured god incarnation aside and saved it. Wernos sized up Han Xiao again, feeling the energy fluctuations of the mechanical deity. A complicated look flashed through his eyes. This is your full strength? Looks like I still underestimated you. No, I should say that you're too secretive. Just like the rumors, no one knows how many trump cards you have and where your limits are. Why haven't I heard of this rumor? Han Xiao casually replied. In the past few days, he had been fighting with the direct members of the 3 universal civilizations. He had been suppressing his impulse and holding onto the character's summon card without using it, just to guard against Wernos. Wernos could invite a god to possess him, and he also had a character summon card with similar functions. At this time, he had already activated the dual mechanical sense and dual ancient ones, and his strength had skyrocketed. He instantly entered his explosive state. If he activated the character summon card in advance, the direct members of the 3 universal civilizations would probably not be able to last 6 days. Even if they could, the number of direct beyond grade as who would fall in his hands would be much higher. 100 years is just a blink of an eye. To a beyond grade, it's at most their youth, but you already have the ability to dominate the galaxy at such a young age. In known history, no one has ever had a talent like yours. I really can't imagine how bright your future will be. Wernos sighed. He took out the last few divinities, formed them into god incarnations, and scattered to join the battle, using their own abilities to fight the mechanical army. He had brought more than 10 divinities with him this time, and he originally did not want to use the rest. However, the current situation, he had no choice. Only a few. I'm afraid they won't be enough for me to kill. Han Xiao raised his brows. These god incarnations had different abilities, and although they were high-level beyond grade, as they were relatively fragile. His combat strength in his explosive state had already surpassed the common sense of ordinary people. As long as the god incarnations did not have any special abilities or talents in defense, evasion, or recovery, he could easily kill them in a few seconds. It was much easier than dealing with those direct beyond grade, as who had all kinds of universal treasures protecting them. I'll know after I try. Wernos put his hands together, and his body suddenly expanded, rapidly becoming a giant. Compared to Han Zhao's mechanical deity's size earlier, it was like an ant compared to a mountain, but now it was on par with Han Zhao's mechanical deity. However, the priest robe on his body was not torn apart. It expanded along with his body size, and dense magic circuits lit up on its surface. It was also a universal treasure level enchanted equipment, so he would not be naked in front of the entire universe. This guy can grow bigger? Han Zhao's eyes flickered. This was something that was not shown in the intelligence. As if seeing Han Zhao's doubts, Wernos slowly explained, "My god's trait transformation has been completed, and the giant bloodline can be used to the extreme. This is also the first time I'm using this ability." He had been training in the arcane church for many years, and because the ethereal national treasure and his own ability happened to be related to divinity, his god's trait transformation was countless times smoother than other peak beyond grade as. He had completed 2 god's trait transformation routes long ago, but he had never told anyone. Wernos had a part of the giant bloodline to begin with, and the god's trait transformation of the race route greatly strengthened his giant bloodline, turning him into the most optimal form. It was as if he had gathered all the advantages of the evolution route. You're really lucky. Not only are your abilities compatible, but you've also received the full support of Ethereal. Han Xiao frowned. This B***starred was probably also a protagonist-type character, and he most likely had the advanced luck glow. He had kept a low profile for countless years, and he also hid his strength like a monk sweeping the floor. He looked down at Werno's empty hands and said, "Are you planning to keep fighting me barehanded?" Hearing this, Werno's was silent for a while before sighing. "My weapon has already been sealed by you." Han Xiao was stunned for a moment before understanding. F***CK. So the 10,000 deity scepter was also this B***star's equipment. To be specific, Werno's only shared the right to use it. The 10,000 deity scepter still belonged to the arcane church, and it was usually used as a strategic deterrent. Unfortunately, it was sealed by the space-time amber. That made sense. The mechanism of this universal treasure was also compatible with Werno's abilities, so it was not strange for Ethereal to be used by him. However, he did not have the chance to use it now. At this time, the fake mechanical deity finally returned to the battlefield along the path of the fleet formation. It continued to pounce over fearlessly, relying on its recovery ability. Han Xiao twisted his body, and the mechanical spear quickly transformed into a whip. He swung it backward, and lightning exploded in the sky, dazzling everyone. In its explosive state, the speed and strength of the mechanical deity had increased tremendously. This time, it struck the fake mechanical deity's waist at lightning speed, almost cutting it in half. At the same time, the fake mechanical deity was knocked to the side and sent flying away again. At this time, a scorching energy came from behind. Han Xiao turned around and blocked Werno's fist with his spear. Boom! A shockwave burst out. The two sides clashed with each other. Han Xiao's thrusters were at full power, and he had the upper hand, slowly pressing toward Werno's. The giant bloodline is very strong. Your strength is no weaker than a pugilist's. Han Xiao snorted. Same to you. Werno's suddenly retracted his fist and gathered his strength. The next moment, he threw out a sky full of fist shadows. When a tortoise's fist was extremely fast, no move was better than a move. Han Xiao was not to be outdone. The mechanical spear spun as if it was flying, accurately meeting every attack. He fought with Werno's, and a series of shock waves exploded in the air. At this time, the fake mechanical deity flew back and joined the battle. It was constantly sent flying, but it kept charging, persevering. Werno's had the ethereal national weapon to protect him, and the fake mechanical deity had inherited his super recovery ability. Currently, the only breakthrough on the battlefield was the other god incarnations. Han Xiao planned to do the same, but he was blocked by the two giant bodies, so he had no choice but to take the attacks head-on and kill the god incarnations. At this point, there were no more tricks. The two sides fought head-on without stopping. The scene was intense, and the aftermath was shocking. The battle had already reached its climax. Watching the news broadcast, the hearts of countless galactic residents were in their throats. They could not take their eyes off the screen. What a strong beyond grade A. He must be the trump card of the three universal civilizations. God, please let Black Star lose. This is probably our last hope. Many galactic residents could not help but pray. On the other hand, contrary to the public opinion online, the players were excited. Oh, I'm familiar with this domain. The boss has entered the second stage. Clear the mobs first before fighting the boss. Old Black did the right thing. Does anyone want to bet? I bet 30,000 anas on Old Black winning. Who wants to follow? The many army players discussed excitedly. The forums were already flooded with videos of the monsters on the scene. After flipping through more than 10 pages, they were all clips of Han Zhao's battles in the past few days. In the main ship of the three universal civilizations, many direct beyond grade as looked at the battlefield outside the window, silently. Many of them had bitter expressions. I didn't expect Black Star to still hold back against us. If he had displayed such strength before, many people in this room would have stopped breathing. Verena smiled bitterly. Hearing this, many beyond grade has turned to look at her, feeling even worse. They originally thought that they were in a stalemate with Black Star, but the truth was that they had overestimated themselves. Not only were they exhausted, they even had to thank the other party for not using his full strength. Thinking of such a situation, everyone's mood remained low, and their confidence was severely damaged. Olu held it in for a long time before he finally said something. Two monsters. Even as a peak beyond grade A, Olu had to admit that these two were so strong that they made his heart tremble. Not only was Black Star shockingly strong, but Wernos was also stronger than many years ago. The two of them had already surpassed the others. In his eyes, they were completely unique existences. This time, User frowned and said, "There's only 2 days left. There are only 2 days left before the ultimatum expires. Are we really going to let them fight one-on-one and just watch from the side?" Hearing this, Claudia said solemnly, "Of course not. Of course not. When the time is almost up, we'll swarm in together. Ignore Wernos. No matter what, we have to beat Black Star down. Now, hurry up and recover. If Wernos still hasn't finished the battle by tomorrow, we'll have to attack again." Everyone's heart trembled as they nodded. Time flew by quickly. Under everyone's gazes, Han Xiao and Wernos fought fiercely for more than a day, and the situation gradually became clear. Han Xiao finally eliminated all the god incarnations other than the fake mechanical deity, paying the price of a large number of mechanical troops. Although he was entangled by Wernos and the fake mechanical deity, the explosive state of Han Xiao's mechanical deity gave him a significant advantage in terms of individual attributes. He broke through the encirclement time and time again, not caring about being injured at all. He got rid of the god incarnations one after another, making it easier and easier for him. In fact, the last few god incarnations were not eliminated by him personally, but by the mechanical troops and apostle weapons. Now, the remaining mechanical troops were free to attack Wernos and the fake mechanical deity. Clang! The two of them clashed again, and Wernos suddenly retreated a distance. He swung his hand and sent an apostle weapon that kept attacking his eyeballs flying. "The god incarnations I brought were all killed by you. It seems like I can't do anything to you." "What, you're out of moves?" Han Xiao slapped the fake mechanical deity away again and snorted. "There's only the two of us left. If we continue fighting like this, we won't be able to determine the winner." Wernos shook his head. "Anyway, there's only 1 day left. I don't care." Han Xiao did not care. Although he had killed all the god incarnations, he could not break the ethereal nation weapon, nor could he kill the fake mechanical deity. Wernos could not threaten his life either. Now it was just two big lumps of meat rubbing against each other. "I can't kill you, and you can't kill me." Conservatively speaking, he and Wernos could still fight for 10 days to half a month without rest. "If that's the case, let's end it here," Wernos said softly. "You think it'll end just because you say so?" Han Xiao curled his lips. Wernos glanced at him and suddenly chuckled. His giant body suddenly shrank and returned to his normal size. He opened the public channel and said straightforwardly, "I'm not your match. I'm no match for you. I admit defeat." Han Xiao was stunned. He did not expect Wernos to do this. A direct, beyond grade, was standing up for the three universal civilizations. Admitting defeat in public would go against his original intention. Furthermore, neither of them showed any signs of losing. At most, it would be a draw. Why would he admit defeat on purpose? Wernos snapped his fingers, and the fake mechanical deity suddenly stopped and exploded from the inside out. This god spirit incarnation was directly removed by him. Han Xiao frowned. He raised his hand to stop the mechanical army's attack and asked in confusion, "What are you doing?" Wernos turned off the wide area channel and switched back to mental communication. His eyes had a meaningful look. "Black Star, you're the most talented super to date. You're the most likely to open the door to the next level. I said from the beginning that I don't want to be your enemy." "What do you mean by that?" "Admitting defeat in public. Aren't you afraid that the Arcane Church will have something to say to you?" Han Zhao's brows furrowed even tighter. "I've already done what I can, and it's enough to complete the mission. As for my purpose, maybe one day you'll know." Wurnos revealed an inexplicable smile, turned around, and flew toward the three universal civilizations fleet. Han Shao made the mechanical army open a path and did not stop him. He silently stared at Wurno's back and realized that he did not understand Wurno's personality and thoughts. In his previous life, the Dark Emperor and Olu both died in the World Tree War. Only Wurnos did not participate in the war. Han Shao did not believe that the Arcane Church did not give the order. He had no idea what this guy was thinking. Forget it. I can't guess what he's thinking. Anyway, I've got the mission reward. Han Shao exhaled, opened the interface, and looked. A satisfied smile appeared on his face. The Beyond Grade A challenge mission that belonged to Wurnos was shining with a golden light, showing the completed status. He retracted his mechanical army, removed the mechanical deity, and sat on a new divine throne. He scanned the three universal civilizations fleet, opened the public channel, and slowly spoke. Who else? As soon as he said that, the entire channel was silent. Not a single sound could be heard. On the other side, as soon as Wurnos returned to the main ship, many direct Beyond Grade as surrounded him with unfriendly expressions. How can you admit defeat in public? Claudia shouted in a deep voice. I can't beat him, so of course, I have to admit defeat, Wurnos replied casually. Do you think we're blind? Verena was furious. You clearly don't show any signs of losing. You can continue to fight with Black Star for a long time. Wurnos glanced at her and said calmly, and then, are we going to fight until the end of the ultimatum? I remember that I said I wanted to fight Black Star one-on-one, but you guys don't plan to listen to my request and are ready to attack, right? Hearing this, everyone's momentum was stifled. I can guess what you guys are thinking with my eyes closed. Seeing this, Wurnos shook his head, squeezed through the crowd, and walked away, leaving only his back view. He did not want to participate in the battle from the beginning. Originally, he wanted to slack off until the end, but the ethereal Pope had given a death order, so he had no choice but to take action. However, Wurno's mentality was not to defeat Black Star. He just wanted to see and experience Black Star's true strength and try his best. It would be enough if he could barely complete the mission. He did not lie. He did admire Black Star a lot, but his motive for admitting defeat was not out of admiration, but for another reason. Wurnos did not want to stop the war between the three universal civilizations and the Beyond Grade A Association at all. Instead, he was happy to see it happen. This was the core of the matter. For so many years, Wurnos had been stuck in an invisible bottleneck. He realized that no matter what, it was difficult for his strength to increase. It was as if there was some kind of restriction that prevented him from touching a higher level of power. He had always believed that only competition and pressure could give birth to the strong. Just like in the exploration era back then, when the supers fought fiercely, the Beyond Grade as were born. The appearance of the first primordial one was like a signal, and more Beyond Grade as appeared one after another. The way he saw it, the advancement of individual strength might require a pioneer who was blessed by the heavens to break the limit. Only then would the latecomers be able to follow and drink the soup. Black Star, who had broken the historical record, entered his sights because of this. In his eyes, Black Star was the most likely person to become a pioneer. Wurnos did not like the harmonious atmosphere of the Beyond Grade A Association. He preferred to see the Beyond Grade as fight every day, just like raising venomous insects to give birth to stronger individuals. Now that the three universal civilizations were attacking the association, it was more in line with his needs. In this regard, Wurnos and ES God had the same stubbornness, but they walked different paths. Compared to ES God's selfish style, Wurnos hoped that all the strong individuals in the universe would work together. To put it in a more fashionable way, he hoped to see an era where everyone was like a dragon and let others be the pioneers. After all, with his ability, doing this would be twice the result with half the effort. The more strong individuals there were in the universe, the higher his peak combat strength would be. Various thoughts flashed through his mind, and Wurnos lowered his eyes. Today, I'll give you my reputation. Let me see how far you can go. At the same time, The scene of Wernos admitting defeat in public fell into the eyes of countless people through the news broadcast. At this moment, the hope that countless galactic residents had finally ignited seemed to have been extinguished by a pool of urine. They felt cold from head to toe. All the galactic residents who were looking forward to Black Star's defeat withered in their seats, their faces filled with despair. The three universal civilizations were so huge, yet they could not find a single strong individual who could defeat Black Star. They even shamelessly ganged up on him and lost. How embarrassing! Not long after, countless galactic residents became nervous again. This was because today was the last day of the three universal civilizations' ultimatum. If both sides still did not give in, the war would most likely start. Seeing that there was no hope, many galactic residents no longer hesitated. With the thought of giving up, they began to vent their anxiety and fear on the internet, as well as their anger that Black Star did not lose according to their wishes. All of a sudden, the public opinion supporting the three universal civilizations was stirred up again. They no longer called for a stop to the war, but instead went to the other extreme. To a certain extent, they became fanatics supporting the war. The core argument was only one. They strongly supported the three universal civilizations to defeat the Beyond Grade A Association and eliminate the unstable factors in the galactic society. Thank you for the short and powerless leather armor. The 1000000 reward from the well-known Guildmaster. Thank you for the 10,000 reward from a short and powerless leather armor. Thank you for the 10,000 reward from the mysterious MO. Thank you for the 10,000 reward from the reader 20181102212857245. Book, Female Channel's First-Rate Female Advisor by Yuan Chinue. Mystery Genre Introduction. Easy Version Introduction. In her previous life, she was a carefree beauty with a rich family. Other than freedom, she had everything. Who would have thought that everything would turn upside down? Her family was destroyed, her father was gone, and she was burned. Before she died, she was even disfigured. She was reborn as the abandoned daughter of a concubine, solved the case, started her career, entered the organization, went to the central government, and took revenge for her father. In a chapter. Chapter 1326. Hope shattered, fear and panic were often accompanied by anger. Werno's admission of defeat instantly ignited public opinion. They had been looking forward to the three universal civilizations sending people to destroy Black Star's arrogance. But reality shattered their fantasies. No one could stop Black Star. Many galactic residents were afraid and angry, which turned into anger. Fine, you're strong individually, and the three universal civilizations can't compare to you, but we still have a fleet and a regular army. I don't believe we can't stop you. Since they could not win in terms of individual strength, a large number of galactic residents immediately turned to believe in the collective strength of the three universal civilizations. They found a new reason to convince themselves and found a new source of confidence. Today was already the last day of the ultimatum. The public opinion had completely gone to the extreme, supporting the three universal civilizations to clean up the association. Everyone was agitated. The Beyond Grade A Association is just a civilian organization. Daring to go against the three universal civilizations is undoubtedly the act of a wanted criminal. Think about it. The government wants to control you, but you don't obey. Isn't that breaking the law? Oh, you can break the law just because you established a civilian organization? Why? Isn't it because they rely on their strength to do whatever they want? Let's be honest, Beyond Grade as have always been unstable factors. They enjoy privileges and don't care about the universal laws of the galaxy. If it were up to me, we should either bring them all under the supervision of the civilization or kill them all, lest they endanger the galactic society. Today is the bitter fruit. Beyond Grade as are just the representatives of the supers. All supers should be controlled. Only then can order be guaranteed. Many public security incidents are related to supers. Without them, public security will improve. Ever since the Sanctum Revival appeared, The three universal civilizations have begun to guide public opinion, provoke anger, and deliberately incite the opposition between ordinary people and supers. This lasted for more than a year, and like a spring, it became tighter and tighter. At this turning point, the dissatisfaction of a large number of people toward the supers finally erupted. Countless galactic residents vented their anger, wishing that all beyond grade, as in supers, would die. Although it was very extreme, it was indeed the true portrayal of the hearts of some galactic residents. Their genes destined them to be ordinary people. This was even more despairing than the gap between the rich and the poor. Almost everyone more or less hid their resentment towards the unfairness of fate and their unwillingness to accept it. If there was a chance, quite a number of people would not mind revealing their hatred for supers. However, the anger of public opinion on the quantum network was of no help to the current situation and could not affect Han Zhao's actions. Han Zhao sat in the middle of the battlefield and glanced at the joint fleet of the three universal civilizations. After Werno's admitted defeat, the other direct members seemed to have fallen silent. On the last day of the ultimatum, they actually did not attack in vain. Looks like they finally learned their lesson. Han Zhao let out a sigh of relief. This time, they had been rather successful in establishing their might. They had kept a low profile for many years and had once again amazed the world with their overwhelming combat strength. Not only had they given the association members confidence, but they had also dealt a blow to the enemy's morale. At the same time, they had also obtained a mission reward. Just then, the mecha's internal communicator rang, connecting to Manison's channel. Your progress is always beyond my expectations. Manison had mixed feelings. He was also shocked by Han Zhao's results and could not help but feel jealous. It's all right, just at the level of an ordinary person. Han Zhao was humble. All right, he was still as shameless as ever. Manison was speechless for a while. After adjusting his mood, he curiously said, "Your mechanical deity is a little different. Is it a new technology? There seems to be traces of the felons in it." "That's right, I borrowed some of the principles of the felons." Han Zhao nodded and admitted. Manison was silent. Another trump card technology was secretly learned by Black Star. My heart hurts. He wanted to be angry, but he realized in despair that he had already gotten used to the feeling of being secretly learned. Taking a deep breath, Manison calmed himself down and said in a low voice, "What's the principle behind this technology? Can you tell me?" "I can, but you won't be able to learn it." Han Zhao shrugged. "This technology is tailor-made for me. The premise is that you have extremely strong physical recovery. You're too fragile. Isn't it normal for mechanics to be fragile? You're the only one who's different and has the right to laugh at us." Manison pressed his hand to his heart and calmed down for a while. He did not want to talk about this annoying topic anymore. He changed the topic, and his tone became serious as he said in a deep voice, "That's right. Today is the last day of the ultimatum. I've already prepared for war. How are things on your side?" Han Zhao nodded. The association's people have been arranged at strategic locations in the various star fields. If nothing goes wrong, some people have already started to move. War is a shortcut to peace. After today, we in the three universal civilizations will rely on our own abilities. I hope the era will continue in our hands. Manison sighed. Han Zhao curled his lips and did not comment. After sighing for a while, Manison was about to turn off the communication when he suddenly remembered something. My halberd is broken, but the other universal treasures I lent you aren't broken. You took them all away. When are you going to return them to me?" Hey. Are you treating me like an outsider? We're so close. How can I swallow your universal treasures? What kind of person do you take me for?" Han Zhao was immediately filled with righteous indignation. Manison sneered. "You don't do anything related to humans at all, and you still have the face to ask me what kind of person I take you for? You're not human at all. Just tell me when you'll return it. When I defeat the three universal civilizations fleet, I'll return it to you." "Hey, you clearly wanted to say that you'll return it to me after you're done with your research." Manison glanced at Han Zhao, snorted, and turned off the communication. He had long been worn down by Han Zhao. Furthermore, they had known each other for so many years and knew each other well. When he lent it out, he had long been mentally prepared, so he was not surprised at all. As expected of you, Black Star. Han Xiao turned off the communication interface. Seeing that the three universal civilizations did not make a move, he opened the interface and looked at the mission reward. The direct members of the three universal civilizations did not trigger a single challenge mission, but a mission similar to the one when he sparred with Joey and the others. The length of time he lasted determined the reward, and the highest reward was 7 character summon cards and 5 random ability draws. He could choose any participant as his draw target. Werno's solo challenge triggered a regular Beyond Grade A challenge mission, and the reward was a character summon card and a random draw. Looks like I won in the end. I didn't come for nothing. Han Xiaoxin felt much better and was comforted. The battle was imminent, and his hands were itching. However, after thinking about it, he resisted the urge to draw immediately. He had already achieved his goal of establishing his dominance. If they fought tomorrow, the three universal civilizations' joint fleet would attack, and the direct members would most likely all take action. Han Xiao would not continue to fight alone. Recruiting people was also a good tradition of the association, so he naturally had to carry it forward. He had never been afraid of competing with who had more people, so he was not in a hurry to settle the rewards. What a pity. If only I could make the three universal civilizations take a step back. Han Xiao shook his head. Thinking of a previous thought, he could not help but stroke the communicator. He was hesitant about whether he should call the three universal civilizations heads and reveal the news of the World Tree civilization to divert the internal conflict. The ideal situation was, of course, for the three universal civilizations to believe this, temporarily put down their hostility, and work together to deal with the external enemies. Although it would cause the World Tree War to come early, it would preserve a lot of their strength and not exhaust it in advance. However, with the current tense situation and the current relationship between the two sides, he felt that the probability of the three universal civilizations' heads believing him was very low. They would most likely treat it as an excuse to admit defeat or a way to step back. If he could not convince the three universal civilizations' leaders, the two sides would still have to start a war. At the same time, the three universal civilizations might secretly study whether the information about the World Tree was true. In that case, not only would the explored universe lose a wave of military forces, the World Tree War might come even sooner, causing the three universal civilizations to have no time to recover. Therefore, Han Xiao was hesitating. It was difficult for him to confirm the butterfly effect of this action. It's difficult. In the Beyond Grade A Association's online chat room, a group of Beyond Grade A remote projections were discussing. Many of them still had a look of surprise on their faces. Even Werno's can't deal with Black Star. He hasn't fought for decades, and his strength has actually reached such a level. Black Star is really an unbelievable guy. I thought he was going to suffer this time, but I didn't expect him to hold on. He fought the three universal civilizations alone and suppressed all the direct members. If I didn't witness it with my own eyes, I wouldn't have believed this was real. The Beyond Grade, as we're talking excitedly. They had watched the entire broadcast of Black Star fighting the direct members of the three universal civilizations alone, and they were more and more shocked every day. After Werno's admitted defeat, the entire circle was in an uproar. Even the publicly acknowledged strongest cheat, Werno's, could not take down Han Xiao, which shocked the entire Beyond Grade A circle. In everyone's eyes, this crown finally no longer belonged to Werno's, but to Black Star. Not only was he the president of the Beyond Grade A Association, but he was also the undisputed #1 Beyond Grade A, so his position as president was even more legitimate. I'm relieved that Black Star has such strength. Kasuyi relaxed. Many people nodded and smiled. The three universal civilizations had many trump cards, and many association members were worried that Black Star might encounter an accident, causing no one to be able to use the Sanctum Revival. Now that they saw that Black Star was unexpectedly strong, many people felt relieved. Kasuyi looked around, stopped smiling, and said with a deep voice, "All right, don't relax too much. Today is the last day of the ultimatum. Everyone, get ready and be on standby." Wait for Black Star to teleport us over to participate in the battle. Hearing this, everyone stopped smiling and became serious. Sun Hunter pulled the bolt and snorted. I can finally show my strength. My cannon is already thirsty. In the three Universal Civilizations joint conference room, Bruce, Lewis, and the ethereal Pope looked at the remote surveillance screen with ashen faces. This is outrageous. All the direct members have been sent out. With so many people, they can't even take down Black Star. How are they going to deal with the other Beyond Grade S? Bruce slammed the table heavily, his tone filled with strong dissatisfaction. They lost. What they lost is the face of the civilization. They made us a stepping stone and made Black Star famous. Lewis was so angry that he almost suspected that these direct members were all incompetent. We can't blame them. Black Star is unbelievably strong. The ethereal Pope frowned. He was very dissatisfied with Werno's admitting defeat, but the impact had already been made. It was useless for him to criticize Werno's. He even regretted forcing Werno's to leave the Temple of 10,000 Gods this time. Looking at Black Star swaggering in front of the two armies, the three of them suddenly felt a wave of helplessness, anger, and helplessness. In terms of individual strength, they really could not suppress Black Star. The three of them were also at their wits' end. After all, they could not defeat him with high-end combat strength. If we want to deal with him, we can only rely on the army and various war weapons. Lewis's expression was solemn. He turned to look at the two of them. As soon as the notice arrives, we'll start the war. Are you sure? This day will come sooner or later. I only regret that I made up my mind to settle the score too late. I'll let the Beyond Grade as develop for so long and become a huge threat, the ethereal Pope said slowly. At this juncture, the ultimatum has already been called out. There's no way we can go back on our words. Bruce nodded. All right. Then order the various armies to act according to the battle plan. Before he could finish, the emergency communicator suddenly rang in the room. Lewis stopped and looked at Bruce. The ringtone came from the dynasty ruler's direction. Bruce took out the communicator and looked at it. It showed an emergency report sent by the dynasty's main artificial intelligence, Heroic Soul. The reports of the various departments were all reviewed by the main artificial intelligence and handed over to different positions to deal with according to priority. Disturbing him when he was in a meeting with the other two leaders meant that the main artificial intelligence judged that this news was very urgent. What report is this? Bruce only read the beginning before his expression changed. He read the entire report in silence. He pondered for more than 10 seconds before turning to look at the other two with curiosity. You might want to see this. In Mechanical Race's territory, on the last day of the ultimatum, time passed minute by minute as they waited anxiously. The soldiers present and the countless galactic residents watching the broadcast felt like years. The clock gradually pointed to the time of the ultimatum. Like the signal of war getting closer and closer, the three Universal Civilizations and the Beyond Grade A Association's fleets had a slight commotion. The atmosphere was like a taut string, and the smell of gunpowder was getting stronger and stronger. In the Black Star Corps' fleet, a large number of army players were getting restless. It's coming. The war is about to start. I've watched enough cutscenes. The main storyline is finally about to begin. For the army. The many army players rubbed their fists and could not wait for the two sides to start fighting immediately. On one hand, they wanted to see the world in chaos and wanted to participate in the main storyline. On the other hand, many people also saw the direction of public opinion on the internet and realized that so many people were criticizing, and insulting them, the immortals. As the target of criticism, the sense of immersion had always been quite strong. Many players were quite angry. However, at the same time, some players also had a deeper understanding of the mission named Calamity of the Supers and the conflict between the ordinary people and the Supers. As a member of the Supers, the sense of participation in the tide of the times arose spontaneously. This made some players who liked the storyline feel quite excited. They felt like they were witnessing the beginning of a great era with their own eyes. All crew, get ready for battle. The commander's voice spread throughout the battleships. Countless soldiers tensed up and looked at the timer. Dead silence spread. In a tense wait, time passed minute by minute, and it was getting closer and closer to the ultimatum. The hearts of the soldiers on both sides and the countless galactic residents were in their throats. Just as the war was about to break out, the three universal civilizations' joint fleet suddenly moved. The rear of the three universal civilizations changed to the front, and the joint fleet retreated in an orderly manner, leaving the confrontation area batch by batch, starting a large-scale withdrawal without warning. This scene stunned the troops of the Beyond Grade A Association and all the galactic residents watching the broadcast. The ultimatum was about to end. Why did the three universal civilizations suddenly retreat without saying anything? Didn't they say very firmly that they would never give in and that they had to fight? Why did they take the initiative to go back on their words now? They came aggressively, but when they left, they did not even say a word. On the quantum network, all the comments supporting the three universal civilizations' liquidation of the association were instantly silenced. They were shocked to find that things did not develop as they had imagined, and they were at a loss. This feeling was like the backing that had always stood up for them suddenly did not want to protect them anymore. Could it be that Black Star had defeated all the direct Beyond Grade, as it made the three universal civilizations scared? It was difficult for many people not to think in this direction. At the same time, a similar guess appeared in the minds of many people. Could it be that the three universal civilizations' original intention was to scare the association and pressure the association to compromise? But they realized that this could not scare the association, and the other party was even tougher than them. So the three universal civilizations were scared and could no longer pretend, retreating resentfully and running away on the last day of the ultimatum. This many galactic residents did not know what to say, and their feelings were very complicated. We all supported you guys to start a war, liquidate the Beyond Grade A Association, and solve the root of the instability in the galactic society. But you guys ran away yourselves? Are you worthy of our support? Although the expected war did not break out, which was worth celebrating, many people felt a little embarrassed. Thinking back to their previous support, they now felt like they had been slapped in the face by the three universal civilizations. On the other side, Han Shao watched the three universal civilizations retreat in an orderly manner and was also confused. After hesitating for a while, Han Shao took the initiative to call the dynasty ruler, but the other party did not pick up, which made him feel even more confused. They ran away just like that? This doesn't seem like their style. The three universal civilizations are not that scared, right? What happened? A few days ago, Central Galaxy, Dynasty Science Academy. The members of the wormhole detection team were gathered in the activity room, looking at the virtual screen worriedly. It was broadcasting the scene of the battle between Black Star and Claudia. In the past few days, they had stopped all the projects on hand and were all concerned about the next development of the galactic situation. This was closely related to their lives. Looks like there's going to be a war. In the crowd, someone whispered, and the room was filled with sighs, full of worry. All the researchers present were anti-war. On one hand, they were worried that the wormhole detection project would be stopped again after the war, and there would be no future development. On the other hand, from the conscience of normal people, they instinctively hated war. If only someone could stop this war, someone muttered in a low voice. Hearing this, the project director's eyes suddenly flashed. He clenched his teeth, turned around, and walked out of the activity room, returning to his office. He searched in the database for a while and pulled up a special wormhole detection report. Because he had been paying attention to the situation recently, he did not have time to report it. Hopefully, it will be of some use. The project director swallowed a mouthful of saliva and changed this report, changing the suspected existence of an unknown advanced civilization in the detection conclusion to confirmed existence of an unknown universal civilization. After doing all this, the project director did not send it to the review department, but directly uploaded this report to the database of the dynasty's main artificial intelligence. This violated the operating rules and would definitely be punished. I don't know if it will work. The project director frowned and murmured to himself. In order to stop the possible outbreak of a galactic war, he was willing to do what he could to do. He was not sure if this trick would work, but he felt that if everyone just stood by and watched, nothing would change. Chapter 13:27. The sudden retreat of the three universal civilizations before the deadline shocked the entire galactic society. They did not know what was going on and were confused. The comments supporting the war in the quantum network disappeared, and all kinds of sarcastic voices appeared. Yo, aren't the three universal civilizations very stubborn? They gave in just like that? TSK, TSK, TSK. Looks like the three universal civilizations can only put on an act. They've fully exposed their strength. You're still supporting them to start a war? Why don't you take the three universal civilizations seriously? The direction of public opinion changed again. Looking at these sarcastic comments, the galactic residents were speechless and furious. Not only were some supers watching the show, but there were also some organizations stirring up trouble behind the scenes. The Supercluster Alliance had been lying in wait, and now that they saw the opportunity, they immediately jumped out to add fuel to the fire, displaying their traditional skills and stirring up *T. On the other side, compared to the galactic residents, the players were even more confused. That's it. I've been watching the cutscenes for 10 days, and you're saying you're not going to fight. What happened to an all-out war? Cowards. I've already taken off my pants, and you guys... Oh, I forgot I can't take off my pants. Under the terrified gazes of the other crew members, the army players yelled, thumped their chests, and stomped their feet. They were all agitated, lamenting that the war did not break out smoothly. They were like a group of shocking war fanatics. The joint fleet of the three universal civilizations turned into dense hyperdrive streams of light and hurriedly retreated. Seeing this, Manison flew out of the fleet and stood side by side with Han Xiao, watching the three universal civilizations leave. Strange, they didn't even say goodbye and gave up on the siege, just like that? Manison was confused. There must be something wrong with this. The three universal civilizations definitely didn't make such a big move just to trick us. It can be seen that they're really mentally prepared to start a war, but now they'd rather go back on their words and retreat. There must be a huge change. Han Xiao stroked his chin and muttered softly. Maybe they're really scared? Manison said, then shook his head. He also felt that the possibility was not high. He guessed, maybe the three universal civilizations leaders thought it through and thought that the disadvantages of starting an all-out war with the association outweigh the benefits. So they changed their decision and took back the order. Then, the strategic goal of the virus technology leakage has been achieved? I'm not sure. The three universal civilizations will probably give an answer to the galactic society. Let's wait and see first. I'll also think of a way to find out the inside story. Maybe the three universal civilizations will take the initiative to contact me after some time. Han Zhao's eyes flickered as he pondered. Hearing this, Manison turned to look at him. Do you know something? It's just a guess. I don't have enough information, so I can't be sure. Han Xiao shook his head. At this time, his communicator rang and connected to the communication channel of the Beyond Grade A Association. Blackstar, what's the situation on your side? The three universal civilizations aren't fighting anymore? What do they mean by this? Should we continue with our battle plan? As soon as the call was connected, the many Beyond Grade as immediately asked a series of questions. The many association members were also very confused. They were all mentally prepared to fight to the death. They had even taken off their pants, ready to fire at any time, but their opponents changed their minds and ran away. The fighting spirit that they had built up with much difficulty was suppressed in their hearts. This feeling was like suddenly seeing a speed limit sign and a traffic police officer staring at them from the side while they were preparing to race. They could only suppress the unrestrained feeling in their hearts. Didn't they say that whoever gave in was the coward? Why did they suddenly cower? You guys wait for orders first and observe the follow-up actions of the three universal civilizations, but don't be too relaxed. Be careful is just a diversion tactic. If they really want to make a move, They might directly use the multi-dimensional sky opening transportation device to attack strategic locations. Han Xiao reminded the association members to continue to be vigilant before hanging up. The three universal civilizations surrounding the mechanical race's territory was just a signal to force them to abdicate. In fact, attacking this place was useless. It was only a declaration of war. At this time, it was still impossible to determine what the three universal civilizations' intentions were. It was also possible that they would withdraw their troops on the surface and then use the multidimensional sky opening transportation device to attack. Seeing that Han Xiao had finished the call, Manison spoke again. What do we do now? The three universal civilizations have retreated. Are the troops here going to disperse? Han Xiao thought for a while and shook his head. Don't retreat yet. Shrink the defense circle and continue to protect the mechanical race's territory. Wait until the three universal civilizations' joint fleet has left this star cluster before disbanding the troops. I'll go back first. Manison nodded, flew back to the main ship, and ordered the mechanical race troops. Han Xiao retracted his gaze, changed into the king, and disappeared. Swoosh! The next second, he returned to a secret army base. This was where some of the officers who did not participate in the battle hid from the flames of war. There were some army officers and many members of Floating Dragon sitting in the room. Ames was among them, overseeing the situation. They were all watching the news broadcast in the mechanical race's territory. Seeing Han Xiao suddenly appear, the gazes of the officers all focused on him. The respect and worship in their eyes were more than just a little stronger than before. It was as if they were looking at a god. You've been very brave these few days. Ames crossed her legs and leaned forward. She placed her arms on her knees and supported her chin with her palms. She tilted her head slightly, and her soft long hair flowed down. She blinked her eyes and said with a teasing tone. She had a smile that was not a smile. Don't you know if I'm brave or not? Han Xiao raised his brows. Ames smiled. You should have a lot of things to deal with. Why are you here all of a sudden? I'm just here to take a look and make sure everything's fine. Han Xiao casually found a reason, turned around, and glanced at the officers. His gaze accurately landed on Phaidon, and he immediately smiled. He strode forward and rubbed his head, taking advantage of his luck. Fu Ding's face was filled with helplessness, as if he was going to let him do whatever he wanted. Seeing this, Aesop could not help but cough and say, You defeated all the direct descendants of the three universal civilizations. Even Wernos can't do anything to you. They'll definitely give up on attacking you in terms of individual strength. I don't know if the three universal civilizations retreated because of this, but they don't seem to want to start a war now. What are you going to do next? Hearing this, Han Xiao stopped smiling. Let's figure out what's going on first. Anyway, don't be happy too early. If I'm unfortunately right, the situation will be even worse. The 10-day confrontation between the three universal civilizations and the association attracted the attention of the entire universe, but not many people expected it to end in such a way. After the joint fleet retreated, the three universal civilizations fell silent. Not only did they recall a portion of the army that they had sent out some time ago, they did not even make a public announcement to explain the reason for the retreat. The public opinion storm became more and more intense, and all kinds of speculations and theories popped up one after another. They thought that this would be the fuse for an all-out war, but the three universal civilizations pulled back at the last moment and stopped the flames of war that were about to erupt. This confrontation instead helped Black Star's reputation, basically solidifying his name as the current peak beyond Grade A combatant. If there was a winner, only Black Star could barely be counted. Some people were glad that the flames of war had not started, some criticized the three universal civilizations for being cowards, and some mocked the galactic residents for thinking too highly of themselves. The public opinion changed, but there was one thing in common. Everyone was curious as to what had forced the three universal civilizations to choose to give in. Due to the silence of the three universal civilizations, no one knew the inside story. Even the Beyond Grade A Association did not make any public comments and was also watching. This caused the Galactic Society to have different opinions. In the joint conference room of the three universal civilizations, we've already repeatedly verified the authenticity of this report. Through the directional wormhole probe, we did find traces of the activities of an unknown civilization. The data itself is fine, but the conclusion of the project is hard to judge. The remote projection of the dynasty upper echelon in charge of the research field stood in front of Marbruce and the other two leaders, giving a serious report. So, we can't confirm that this unknown civilization is a universal civilization for the time being. Marbruce emphasized, "This is indeed so, but the other party must be at the level of an advanced civilization. These days, we've frequently sent multifunctional space probes to the other party and collected more data, which proves that this unknown civilization has a rather high technological level." I understand. You guys continue to collect data while hiding yourselves. I want to know the details of this civilization. After giving a few more instructions, Marbruce hung up the communication. Only he and the other two civilization leaders were left in the room. "Looks like the decision to retreat back then was correct," the ethereal Pope said with a deep voice. Or else we would be in deep trouble right now." This report came at the right time. Lewis agreed, feeling a little relieved. On the last day of the confrontation, they had originally wanted to act according to the battle plan, but this wormhole report from the Dynasty's Science Institute had shaken their decision. The three universal civilizations had always been dedicated to exploring the unknown universe, and this wormhole report had discovered an unknown universal civilization. This was a huge threat. In this regard, the three universal civilizations had rich experience. Once an external enemy appeared, they would have to carefully deal with internal conflicts. This was undoubtedly not a good time to deal with the imbalance of personal strength, so it was not suitable to continue tangling with the beyond grade as. At that time, the arrow was already on the bow, and there was not much time left for the three of them to discuss. In the end, they would rather believe it and stop the battle plan, choosing to give in to the association. They turned around and used a large number of resources to investigate this wormhole data. This wormhole data was one of the legacies ES God had left behind. Because ES God had been sealed for many years, it had long become an unimportant project. However, with such a shocking discovery, it went from almost no one interested in it to the project with the highest priority. The progress was directly supervised by the leaders of the three universal civilizations and was extremely important. In the end, although the conclusion of this wormhole report was somewhat exaggerated, the data was correct. They had indeed discovered an unknown advanced civilization. As for whether or not it was a universal civilization, it was still uncertain. If that was the case, it could only be said that this was an inaccurate conclusion that had immeasurable value. Marbruce knocked on the table and slowly said, "The most important thing to do now is to investigate this unknown civilization. The most important thing now is to collect information on this unknown civilization and determine their strength, social structure, attitude, and so on. Everything else can be put aside for now." Lewis and the ethereal Pope nodded. The three universal civilizations had a set of strategic plans in this regard. Direct contact or war was impossible. Once they discovered an advanced civilization in the unexplored universe, their first task was to carefully collect information without exposing themselves. Then, they would choose different countermeasures based on this civilization's strength, culture, and other factors. Only by knowing yourself and your enemy would you be able to win 100 battles. Although the explored universe had entered the Galactic Society era, the entire unexplored universe was still in the Dark Forest period similar to the exploration era. Being in the dark was a huge advantage, so they naturally had to make good use of it. Don't forget, before we explore further, we have to take all measures to deal with any accidents, the ethereal Pope said. I understand. Marbruce nodded. The measures that the three of them were talking about were mainly war mobilization and being prepared to launch strategic weapons of destruction into the enemy's territory through wormholes at any time. In some extreme situations, they would not mind directly blowing up the enemy's territory and turning it into a desolate universe belt, wiping out all the creatures of the unknown civilization. They would not show any mercy. This is a matter of great importance. If a war really breaks out, the Beyond Grade A Association is also a powerful armed force. Should we let them know now? Lewis's eyes flashed. He raised a sensitive question and turned to ask the other two for their opinions. The existence of a Beyond Grade A threatened their rule, but at the same time, it was a weapon to fight against the outside world. Now that the situation had changed, their thoughts changed as well. In their eyes, there was no eternal enemy. The ethereal Pope pondered for a moment, waved his hand, and expressed his opinion. Let's be careful. We haven't figured out the situation of this unknown civilization, so there's no need to reveal it to the association now. Think about it. If this unknown civilization can coexist and also have universal strength, once they enter the Galactic Society system, the association will have another choice to rely on. This will affect the structure of the galaxy. We can't guarantee the association's loyalty, so we should keep it a secret for now. Makes sense. Bruce nodded. Let's not announce this to the outside world for now. Let's explore it in secret first. We'll consider whether to announce it or not when we need the association's help. It won't be too late to tell them then. The way the three of them saw it, there was clearly no need to inform the other organizations of such a big matter immediately. They were all potential unstable factors that might cause some trouble. If that's the case, let's put aside our dispute with the association for now. Stabilize those beyond grade, don't let them cause any trouble, and live peacefully for now. Anyway, this is the goal of Black Star and the others. We'll find a reason to unify with them and convey our intention to stop fighting. This will make the association feel that we've given in, Lewis suggested. The other two nodded in agreement. While they could not deal with the association for now, as long as the Beyond Grade did not cause trouble, it was enough for them. At this time, Bruce thought of something, and his eyes flashed. If you remember correctly, Black Star also had this set of wormhole data from God's Legacy. He seemed to have even specifically asked the Dynasty about the research progress of this set of wormhole data. From the looks of it, could it be that Black Star knew something? As this thought flashed through his mind, Bruce shook his head. He felt that the possibility of this was extremely limited. Instead of asking Black Star, it was more trustworthy to explore on his own. Furthermore, they had just reached a consensus to not leak this secret to the outside world. So even if Black Star might know something, he did not plan to ask. After all, the other party was still the leader of the organization that led the fight against the three universal civilizations. In a certain base of the Black Star Corps, the Army Commander's office, a huge star map of the universe floated in the room. On it were the large-scale movements of the various armies of the three universal civilizations, drawing many arrowhead routes. Han Shao stood in front of the star map, carefully looking at the three universal civilizations' troop movements during this period. It had been some time since the three universal civilizations retreated from the mechanical race's territory. These days, the three universal civilizations' troop movements were very abnormal. Originally, they were stationed in the various star fields, preparing to deal with the Beyond Grade A Association. But now, they had all returned to the central galaxy, as if they had no intention of starting a war. The strangest thing was that the three universal civilizations had been pretending to be mute. They did not make an announcement, nor did they contact him, the president of the association, to explain their intentions. Their actions were very abnormal, as if they did not have the time to care about him. He had been thinking of ways to find out the inside story these days, but the three universal civilizations were highly secretive this time, and no relevant information was leaked. Could it be that I guessed right? Han Shao muttered to himself. What could make the three universal civilizations change their decision at the last moment? In this version, there did not seem to be many possibilities, but the butterfly effect he had caused had changed many things. One of them was that God had allowed the Dynasty to obtain the key to the World Tree Civilization's territory early, becoming an unstable factor. The way he saw it, the most likely situation was that the three universal civilizations had discovered the World Tree. Because of the existence of external enemies, The three universal civilizations had retreated so decisively without any warning. If that's the case, the three universal civilizations will definitely conduct in-depth research on the wormhole. They might inform me, or they might keep it a secret from the outside world. With the three universal civilization style and my current identity, the latter is more likely. Han Xiao frowned and bit his fingernails. He had a bad feeling. If the three universal civilizations chose to keep it a secret and explore on their own, they would not know enough about the World Tree civilization, and the risk of being exposed would be very high. If the contact was unavoidably brought forward, if he continued to hide the information about the World Tree, it would increase the risk. Perhaps now was the best time to reveal the information. However, he could also be wrong. If the three universal civilizations gave in because they had discovered the World Tree, it would be self-defeating. So it's still a gamble. Should I gamble? Han Zhao's expression changed. Beep, beep, beep. At this moment, his communicator rang. He took it out and saw that it was a call from a dynasty emissary. Hello, Your Excellency Black Star. As soon as the call went through, the dynasty emissary nodded respectfully. Han Xiao sized him up and went straight to the point. You're finally going to explain your actions? You must be joking. This time, I'm here to negotiate with you on behalf of the three universal civilizations. We're willing to accept the association suggestion and allow you to control the virtual mutiny virus technology. The dynasty emissary said a lot, but the core meaning was that the three universal civilizations were willing to give in, indicating that they did not need Manus in a hand over the virus technology and that they believed in the association's guarantee. They would allow the association to control this high-risk technology, and they would not interfere. Oh, Han Xiao raised his brows. Since you've admitted that the association's guarantee is valid, you've admitted that the association is correct. What about the ban on the association? It won't be lifted for the time being, but can be discussed. The dynasty emissary smiled. Looking at the other party's cold smile, Han Xiao felt more and more the subtle attitude of the three universal civilizations. His expression immediately changed, and he was in a dilemma. His intuition grew stronger, and he felt that he might have guessed the truth. After a few seconds of silence, Han Xiao slowly took a deep breath. It's a gamble. Making up his mind, Han Xiao narrowed his eyes and said, I've understood your intentions. I understand your intentions. Help me tell Mar Bruce something. What is it? You guys are so abnormal. It seems like you finally cracked the wormhole data in ES God's Legacy, right? Chapter 1328. An hour later, in the meeting room of the three universal civilizations leaders, Han Zhao's remote projection slowly entered the room, and he immediately saw the three old fellows with gloomy faces. Their gazes were like hooks hanging on him. Yo, you're all here. Han Xiao was not in a hurry at all and casually greeted them. After the relationship between the two sides fell to the freezing point, this was the first time he had been called for a meeting. Black Star, what exactly do you know? Marbru's expression was extremely solemn. He was not in the mood to talk and went straight to the point. An hour ago, the three of them were waiting for the dynasty's messenger to report on Black Star's attitude toward the three universal civilizations' peace agreement to see if they could stabilize the association. However, they did not expect to hear a piece of news that shocked them. Black Star actually revealed the secret of the wormhole directly. The three of them were all stunned. Where did Black Star find out that we had cracked the secret of the wormhole? Internal intelligence was leaked? Was there a mole? If not for this reason, how did Black Star find out? Could it be that he already knew the secret of this set of wormhole data? The amount of information contained within was too much. Mar Bruce, Lewis, and the Ethereal Pope were anxious. Black Star had specially sent someone to pass the message. No matter what the situation was, it meant that Black Star had unexpected information. This was an important matter, and they could not be careless. The three of them urgently discussed for a while and decided to talk to Black Star. They sent out an invitation, which led to the current meeting. I know a lot. Han Xiao glanced at the three of them and purposely revealed a meaningful expression. He secretly heaved a sigh of relief. He was not sure what was going on with the three universal civilizations, so he did not directly call out the name of the world tree. Instead, he tentatively pointed out the information about the God wormhole. However, since he was called over for a meeting, Han Xiao knew that he had made the right bet. He had guessed the truth and was secretly glad that he had not made a fool of himself. You mentioned the wormhole data in God's legacy. How much do you know about it? Lewis asked with a deep voice. Han Xiao composed himself, glanced at him, and casually said, "You guys found a civilization on the other side of the wormhole, right?" The three of them looked at each other with solemn expressions. Bruce frowned. "Where did you get your information from? I know what you want to ask." Han Xiao raised his eyebrows. "But I didn't steal your insider information." Hearing this, the three of them became even more solemn. Blackstar indicated that the source of his information was not leaked by the three universal civilizations. In other words, he had long known the secret of the wormhole data and held unknown information in his hands. Bruce took a deep breath and let go of his reservations. He even lowered his voice and said solemnly, "Mister, I believe you are well aware of the nature of this matter. We hope you will tell us the truth. This is very important to the entire universe." "Sure." Han Xiao nodded. Since it had already happened, there was no point in hiding it now. It was time to talk openly. He had to let the three universal civilizations know the danger of the world tree in advance. This set of wormholes leads to a territory called the World Tree Civilization. It is an extremely powerful universal civilization that is fanatical about war and expansion. Decades ago, due to some reason, God sent a doppelganger to attack me. In the end, the doppelganger fell into a wormhole during the battle and coincidentally discovered the World Tree Civilization. After that, God sent someone to snatch this wormhole data and study how to find the coordinates of the World Tree Civilization. By chance, I became the only one who knew. Han Xiao had the memories of his previous life and explained the matter in a different way. He emphasized the strength of the World Tree Civilization and basically told them everything he knew about the World Tree Civilization. The three of them frowned and were filled with doubts. Bruce could not help but question, "Did God tell you all this? Putting aside why God only revealed the information to you, why do you know so much about the World Tree Civilization? This doesn't seem like God has only been there once." "I understand your doubts." Han Xiao nodded. This matter was not child's play. If he pushed everything onto God, he would be able to expose the lie as long as he confronted God. If they did not have solid evidence, the three universal civilizations would not believe this information so easily. However, he had already thought of a reason, which would allow him to have a closed-loop explanation for his detailed understanding of the World Tree Civilization. "Actually, I have a relic from a civilization that was destroyed by the World Tree Civilization. It contains a lot of relevant information. My understanding of the World Tree Civilization is basically from this." As he spoke, Han Xiao raised his hand and summoned the 3D projection of SWI-001. He then displayed the information he had prepared long ago on the virtual screen. The expressions of the three of them changed, and they hurriedly browsed through it. The more they read, the more shocked they became. SWI-001's memory device recorded the tragic state of the Karma Republic when it was invaded. It recorded the special war mode of the World Tree Civilization, which was extremely powerful. It also showed that the World Tree Civilization was a universal civilization that could not coexist. All of this proved that Han Xiao was not lying. Without this treasure, even if Han Xiao could explain the source of the information, it would not be convincing. This treasure really came at the right time. Han Xiao sighed. There was nothing much to say, just one sentence. Fighting was awesome. After a while, the three of them finished reading the information, and shock remained in their eyes. The World Tree Civilization's method of devouring everything is the enemy of all intelligent civilizations. "I didn't expect such a hunter to exist in the universe," Lewis muttered to himself. Bruce felt a lingering fear and said in a low voice, "Luckily, we sealed God in time. Luckily, we sealed God early. If he attracted the World Tree Civilization, Halfway through his sentence, his expression suddenly froze. At this moment, Bruce suddenly remembered that the operation to seal God seemed to have been facilitated by Black Star. It was all thanks to Black Star that they were not discovered by the World Tree. Back then, Black Star was determined to seal God no matter what. Could it be that he had already started his long-term plan at that time to secretly protect the explored universe from being invaded? Bruce was shocked. He looked up at Han Xiao and could not help but ask, "Was this the reason why you asked us to hunt God back then? What else? Do you really think I have an irreconcilable hatred for him?" Han Xiao clicked his tongue and asked casually. Bruce's expression changed slightly, and he looked at Han Xiao deeply. He could not help but feel admiration and gratitude, and the fear and suspicion in his heart were greatly diluted. If not for Black Star's efforts, the Galactic Society might have already been invaded. Strictly speaking, the entire universe owed Black Star a favor. However, Black Star had never revealed this matter and silently allowed this achievement to be buried in the dust of history. No one knew about his huge contribution, hiding his achievements and fame. In Bruce's heart, Han Zhao's image immediately grew. Suddenly, the ethereal Pope said with a deep voice, "Black Star, you know the threat of the World Tree civilization. Since you already knew about this information, why didn't you say anything?" Han Xiao shook his head. "I know you guys too well. If you knew that a powerful, unknown civilization was occupying the unexplored universe, would you treat it as if it didn't exist? As long as you say it, it will cause the contact to be brought forward. It was the best choice to keep this secret by one person. If not for the results of your research on the wormhole data, I wouldn't have told you." The three of them were speechless. Indeed, it was fine if they did not know, but if they knew about the huge threat of the World Tree, the three of them knew very well that they would definitely not sit back and do nothing. They would definitely follow the principle of striking first to gain the upper hand, just like now. Detection was a two-way operation. Exploring the World Tree's information also had to bear the risk of being exposed. However, even so, from her standpoint, it was inevitable for them to make the first move. Otherwise, they would have to resign themselves to fate and wait for death. How could they allow others to sleep soundly in their beds? With such a powerful enemy occupying the unknown universe, they could not sleep or eat in peace, afraid that they would be discovered one day and be invaded. There was no way to guard against thieves for 1,000 days. Of course, taking the initiative to eliminate the hidden dangers was more in line with the needs of the three universal civilizations. This was like an interference effect. If both sides did not know of each other's existence, they would still be able to live in peace and be two parallel lines that did not intersect. However, once they discovered each other, they would quickly interact. "I admit that what you said makes sense." Lewis sighed. "But isn't this method also a form of wishful thinking? We're betting that the enemy won't discover us." Han Xiao shook his head and did not say anything. The reason he was so confident was that he knew when the World Tree would invade. However, there was no need to explain such things now, nor was it easy to explain. Even if he said it, the other party would still be skeptical. At this moment, the ethereal Pope frowned. "However, how can we confirm that the information about this civilization relic is real and not fabricated? Are you suspecting me?" Han Xiao glanced at him. "I'm just being cautious, not targeting you." The ethereal Pope waved his hand. Lewis thought for a moment and agreed. "Indeed, the source of the information you provided is very convincing, but the authenticity is still questionable. It's not that we're suspecting you, but we can't completely believe this information. Although it looks real, who knows if there's anything wrong with this civilization relic itself? We can't jump to conclusions. Black Star will use the information you provided as reference. The specifics will still depend on the results of the actual exploration," Bruce said. "TSK, the three of you are so troublesome." Hearing this, Han Xiao curled his lips, but he was not surprised. From the perspective of the three universal civilizations, it was only right to be cautious. After all, there was the possibility of fake information, just like what happened to the Cunny race back then. Who knew if this information was fabricated bait? Han Shao stroked his chin and slowly said, "This civilization relic still has signs of life, but it's in a deep sleep. If we wake it up, we should be able to get more information out of it." He still had a related mission on him, and he had not awakened SWY-001 because he did not want to cause any trouble. However, now that he had confirmed that the three universal civilizations had come into contact with the world tree in advance, this concern was basically eliminated. Therefore, Han Shao did not mind awakening SWY-001 at this time. "All right, I'll leave it to you then. This is very important. By the way, you'll help us, right?" Bruce nodded. Suddenly, he paused as he realized that they were still in a state of confrontation with the association. The other two also realized this, and their expressions were a little uncomfortable. The situation had changed, and they needed the association's strength instead. Not long ago, they wanted to settle the score with the association, but now they were asking for their help. The three of them felt awkward and a little ashamed. However, the three of them were in high positions, so they only felt awkward for a few seconds. They quickly adjusted their mentality and did not show anything on their faces, only staring at Han Shao with burning eyes. Han Shao glanced at the three of them and smiled. "The World Tree Civilization can't coexist with us. We're in a cold relationship, and no one can be independent. Everyone has a common enemy, and cooperation is the only choice." It's great that you can understand this. The three of them heaved a sigh of relief. Now, they needed to unite all their strength. They were really afraid that the Beyond Grade A Association would do something stupid at a time like this. Seeing Black Star casually brush aside the conflict, the three of them could not help but recall the conflicts they had with the Beyond Grade A Association over the years, and their feelings were complicated. Looking at Black Star's actions since he came to power, he had always been trying to maintain a balance and hoped to get along peacefully. He had never taken the initiative to start conflict. In the past, the three of them thought that the association was stalling for time to accumulate strength. But now that they looked back, the three of them suddenly realized that there seemed to be another explanation for Black Star's actions. Was this not preserving their strength? Due to various reasons, they had been suppressing and ostracizing the association, but Black Star had been restraining himself, maintaining a fragile balance like walking on a tightrope. While they were still struggling with their internal conflicts, Black Star had most likely already set his eyes on the World Tree Civilization and was preparing to fight against the external enemies. Unfortunately, the leak of the virtual mutiny virus made them decide to start a war, try to start a full-scale war, and settle the score. I almost couldn't turn back. The three of them were shocked, and a layer of cold sweat appeared on their backs. They were very glad. Fortunately, they had stopped at the critical moment. If they had really fought, it would have destroyed Black Star's good intentions and damaged the strength on their side. Thinking of this, the three of them looked at Han Shao again with complicated gazes. There was guilt and apology, but also gratitude and admiration. I misunderstood him. After knowing the real motive, the three of them felt like they had gotten to know Han Shao again. Black Star's image in their hearts suddenly became vivid. The three of them felt like they were seeing the back of someone walking alone, carrying a burden that no one knew about, trying to eliminate conflicts, but no one understood his true intentions. Black Star, your contribution to this universe is worthy of being called great. This thought flashed through Marbru's mind, and he secretly praised and admired him. At the same time, he felt that it was a pity, and he had the same thought as Unravel. How great would it be if Black Star was a direct descendant of the dynasty? The prejudice of the past melted like snow. At this point, continuing to fight was a foolish thing to do. The three of them knew that Black Star had already shown his goodwill, and it was time for them to express their stance. The three of them looked at each other, understood what each other meant, and slowly nodded. Bruce coughed, looked at Han Shao seriously, and said solemnly, "I'm representing the global civilization. On behalf of the three universal civilizations, I officially invite you to be the special security advisor again. Are you willing?" Chapter 1329. Looking at the solemn expressions of the three of them, Han Shao shook his finger. You're not willing? Marbru's eyes narrowed. No, what I mean is it's not enough. Han Zhao's expression was calm, but he curled his lips in his heart. If we're talking about thick-skinned, you guys are the thick-skinned ones. Not long ago, you guys were still targeting the beyond grade but now you guys change your attitude just like that. Although your motive is right, isn't this kind of behavior treating us beyond grade as like chamber pots that can come and go as you please? Ever since the ban was issued, the association had suffered a lot of losses. Even though everyone was on the same side, the world tree had not attacked yet. If the three universal civilizations wanted to get the association's help without offering substantial benefits, it would not be such a good thing. His identity was multifaceted, and it was his duty to fight for the interests of the association members. He could not accept the righteous kidnapping of the three universal civilizations. Then, what are your conditions? The three of them narrowed their eyes and leaned forward slightly. Personal opinions were personal, business was business. When it came to substantial benefits, even if the three of them admired Han Zhao's contributions, they would not allow him to ask for an exorbitant price. Perhaps, seeing that they were on the same side and that Black Star was actively sharing information about the World Tree, they could give in. However, if the conditions were too excessive, the three of them would not agree. Han Zhao nodded and said, "Working together is the trend, but I hope you can understand. After all, I'm the president of the association, and I have to give the members an explanation. The ban has caused quite a lot of losses to many beyond Grade A members. First of all, the ban needs to be lifted and the losses of the beyond Grade A members will be compensated. What do you think?" "Sure." The three of them nodded. This was in the plan. Han Zhao continued. "Secondly, the association needs to be compensated with additional resources such as lost time, mental damage, and so on. In the subsequent cooperation, the three universal civilizations also have to continue to provide resources. Although we have a common enemy, you guys are the rulers of the explored universe. We'll help you protect your territory. We can't work for free. That's not a problem. The number can be negotiated." The three of them pondered for a moment, but did not object. Han Zhao paused for a moment before slowly saying, "Lastly, the three universal civilizations have to recognize the authority of the Beyond Grade A Association. It will no longer be a civilian organization, but an official superorganization. They will recognize our independence and the sanctity of our territory. They will allow us to openly teach all super knowledge. They will be on equal footing with the advanced civilizations in terms of political status and enjoy the same rights. This will be written into the universal law of the galaxy. In addition, the association will have a territory with a high degree of autonomy at the edge of the explored universe." Hearing this, the three secretly frowned. One of the important reasons they could openly suppress the Beyond Grade A Association was that the nature of the association was that it was a civilian organization and did not enjoy the rights of a series of galactic universal laws, such as the Peace Treaty. No civilian organization had ever enjoyed the same political treatment as the advanced civilizations, not even the powerful Beyond Grade A organizations. This request was unprecedented. This was not a verbal agreement, but a written law. The Beyond Grade A Association wanted to become a true super authoritative alliance. Once they recognized it, the association's skyrocketing reputation would almost be able to monopolize the civilian super community. Furthermore, they would be protected by the universal law. So many suppression methods could not be used on the association, which was very troublesome. At the same time, the Beyond Grade A Association also requested an autonomous territory that was different from the territory of the Beyond Grade As. It was almost like establishing a country. Furthermore, it would be located at the edge of the explored universe, probably with the strategic intention of being able to advance and retreat in order to prevent a possible cleansing in the future. Han Zhao waited for a moment. Seeing that the three of them were deep in thought, he clicked his tongue and added, "Don't misunderstand. I don't mean anything else. This is the association's request for its own safety. I believe the three universal civilizations should be willing to satisfy the association's wish to protect itself, right?" He almost said the unspoken words. You guys have been hesitating for so long. Are you guys thinking about getting rid of the hound after the rabbit is dead? The three of them looked at each other and quickly exchanged opinions in the private channel. Very soon, Bruce knocked on the table and said, "If the World Tree's information is correct, we will agree to this condition. At the same time, if a war breaks out, the association will need to fully contribute. We will draft the detailed terms later." "That's good. When you fulfill your promise, we will have more foundation for cooperation." Han Xiao nodded. He knew very well that this was a potential exchange of benefits and a game of risk. Even if they knew about the existence of external enemies, life had to continue. The three universal civilizations would definitely plan for the situation after defeating the external enemies. At that time, they would still have to solve the problem of the expansion of the number of beyond grade as. Agreeing to this request would increase the difficulty of the cleansing in the future. However, due to the pressure of the external enemies, the three universal civilizations had no choice but to stabilize the association and compromise to a certain extent. If they did not agree to this condition, their intentions would be too obvious. Even if they worked together with the association, there would be a lot of unstable factors. This request was equivalent to Black Star's scheme, making it difficult for them to reject it even if they knew the consequences. Most importantly, Black Star was an unexpected insider, which disrupted the pace of the three universal civilizations. Stabilizing Black Star himself was even more important than stabilizing the association. The three of them thought for a while and finally agreed. Other than compromising, they were also gambling on another possibility. Compared to an internal cleansing, letting the external enemies reduce the number of beyond grade, as was a more suitable way. The beyond grade A association suffered heavy casualties in the external war. This was the most ideal result, far better than internal strife. Not only did it temporarily alleviate the problem of the imbalance of individual strength, but also made the deaths of these beyond grade as the most valuable. This way, the after effects of agreeing to Black Star's request would be greatly reduced. Before the next imbalance of individual strength occurred, they would have plenty of time to think of a solution. Han Xiao also knew what the three universal civilizations meant. This was where the game was. Because the threat of the World Tree was too great, he did not plan to not put in any effort. Making the Beyond Grade A Association suffer heavy casualties was also his goal. The core reason was that there was no limit to the Sanctum revival. He claimed that he only had one chance, and only by exposing the truth would he be able to complete the deterrence of the three universal civilizations. If he wanted people to die, he would either have to fight a civil war or an external war. It was impossible for the Beyond Grade as to collectively commit suicide. In comparison, fighting an external war would naturally maximize the benefits. He would not waste the key, would not exhaust his internal strength, and would also show his fist. As long as they saw the effects of the Sanctum revival, the three universal civilizations would understand the importance of it without experiencing it personally. They would have a strong fear of taking action. Not only would he be able to fight against the World Tree, but he would also intimidate the three universal civilizations. At the same time, he planned to mix in some Sanctum key materials that were difficult to find into the list of compensation. With the wealth of the three universal civilizations, they would definitely be able to take them out. It was equivalent to using other people's materials to build his own weapon and then using it to threaten them. This was very impressive. It was already a foregone conclusion that the World Tree would come into contact with him in advance. So Han Xiao adapted to the situation and flexibly adjusted his plan to maximize the benefits. The three leaders in front of him naturally did not know this, and they probably still thought that he was pursuing the guarantee of peace. Both sides had their own thoughts and reached a temporary consensus. Also, don't reveal anything about the World Tree civilization to the outside world for the time being. The fewer people who know, the better. Otherwise, it will cause chaos, Bruce instructed. Of course. Han Xiao nodded. In his previous life, the battle with the World Tree had been fought with the advanced civilizations, armed forces, and supers. The ordinary people were basically protected, and their use was limited. It was not yet at the level where everyone was a soldier, and even if they knew, it would only add to the trouble. As he spoke, Han Shao paused and said, "By the way, since you've invited me to be the special security consultant, I have to check on this matter. I need to share your exploration report on the World Tree Civilization." "No problem." Bruce agreed very readily this time. After all, he did not have as much information as Black Star, and this was one of the help they needed. Han Shao quickly received the research report on the wormhole data from the Dynasty's Academy of Sciences and immediately began reading it. He had returned to being the special security consultant to supervise the progress of the three universal civilizations' exploration and obtain first-hand information. Currently, he was the only outsider who had the right to interfere with the three universal civilizations' exploration of the World Tree. After quickly browsing through it, Han Zhao's gaze locked onto the first report. Next to the conclusion of confirmed existence of an unknown universal civilization, there was a doubtful comment from the audit department. He then looked back at the data and realized that it did not seem like he could directly come to this conclusion. What's wrong with the researcher who wrote this conclusion? This data can't prove that the other party is a universal civilization. Although he guessed correctly, it's too arbitrary. Han Shao raised his brows. That's why we suspended him. It's too careless. Bruce nodded. Han Shao had a guess. Did this guy do it on purpose? Even a minor character can change the era. He sighed softly and lamented in his heart. After sorting out his emotions, Han Shao pretended to be joking and said, "No matter what, he has made a contribution by chance. We can't let him down." Bruce glanced at him and did not say anything. Seeing this, Han Shao smiled, changed the topic, and got down to business. Based on the current progress, I have a few suggestions. This meeting lasted for a few hours. After the two sides reached a consensus to keep in touch frequently, Han Shao deactivated the remote projection and returned to his office. Han Shao exhaled, rubbed his cheeks, and muttered, "Luckily, the three universal civilizations have avoided the crisis. Luckily, we managed to avoid a civil war. The three universal civilizations have finally stopped targeting us." He knew that the three universal civilizations would not completely let go of their hostility, but at their level, there was basically no one who would not turn back until they hit a wall. They all knew their priorities. As long as everyone came to an agreement, they could stop fighting and make peace today. The relationship between them was not important at all. It only depended on whether there was a need, and external enemies had always been a factor in shifting internal conflicts. The two sides had not turned enemies into friends. At most, they had become temporary partners, working together to solve their common main conflict. In fact, the biggest obstacle for the three universal civilizations to make peace with the association was Han Shao, the president with real power. Now that he had agreed to cooperate, most of the resistance had disappeared. It could be said that he had single-handedly pushed for the alliance between the two sides. From today onwards, the situation has entered a new stage of being united against the outside world. The enemy is in the light, and we are in the dark. We have to start preparing for the World Tree Civilization. Han Shao pulled himself together and felt a chill in his heart. This hidden danger had troubled him for nearly 100 years. Now, it was as if a huge stone had been lifted from his heart. It was finally time to face it. In a chapter. Chapter 1330. One day later, in the Black Star Core territory, Mechanical Life Civilization, Planet Apostle, Han Shao and Aurora walked into the Galactic Research Institute, stopped in front of SWY-001, and looked up at this enormous mechanical body. "Are you sure you want to wake this big guy up today?" Aurora turned around and looked at Han Shao. Han Shao nodded. "Why did you suddenly change your mind?" Aurora asked curiously. "I've already finished studying it. There's nothing else of value left on it. It's time to wake it up and see if we can communicate with it." Han Shao casually found an excuse. "All right, as long as you're happy." Aurora rubbed her hands and said eagerly, "Shall I start now?" Han Shao nodded and snapped his fingers. Mechanical force flowed out, and mechanical soldiers appeared one after another with their weapons raised. At the same time, the various devices that imprisoned SWY-001 also started operating at full power. Seeing this, Aurora flipped her palm, and life force flowed into SWY-001. In her senses, SWY-001's almost dormant life force started to increase rapidly. Although Han Xiao did not have the ability to sense life force, he could still feel a powerful energy wave slowly waking up. In his vision, SWY-001 cells started to generate mechanical force, and the many mechanical modules that were almost paralyzed in its body started to operate. The broken mechanical body started to recover at a speed visible to the naked eye. The mechanical devices that Han Xiao used to imprison it started to show signs of disintegration, as if they were going to be decomposed into raw materials for SWY-001 to repair its mechanical structure. Click, click, click. A series of mechanical sounds came from SWY-001's body. Its core reactor was activated, and its vocal cords also vibrated, letting out a heavy and strange groan like the groan of a beast that had just woken up from its slumber. Aurora cautiously took a few steps back. Han Xiao took a few steps forward and stood in front of her. He stared at the changes in SWY-001's parameters as it woke up. All of a sudden, an intense mechanical force exploded on his mechanical body and flowed through his entire body. SWY-001's eyelids trembled, and he slowly opened his eyes. There was no light in his eyes, as if he had slept for too long and was trying to recall his identity. After being stiff for a long time, SWY-001 seemed to have readjusted its consciousness and started moving its body. SWY-001 scanned its surroundings in a daze. Then it lowered its head and looked at Han Xiao, who was also emitting great power. It opened its mouth and let out a deafening sound wave with many strange syllables, as if it was talking. What is he saying? Aurora didn't understand. She poked Han Xiao's back. That is the common language of his civilization. He is questioning who we are and where we are. Han Xiao explained casually without even turning his head. He had obtained a lot of information from SWY-001's memory file, including the various languages of the Karma Republic. Han Xiao was relieved. Luckily, SWY-001's consciousness had not dissipated. Otherwise, he would have only obtained a shell, and the wake-up service would not have been able to continue. He might have had to go to the sanctum to get him out. Just as he was about to speak to SWY-001, something happened. Boom! A powerful mechanical force exploded, and the confinement device instantly disintegrated and was devoured by SWY-001. Then he twisted his body, and his enormous mechanical body crashed through the wall of the research institute like a giant beast, retreating far away. At the same time, the broken parts quickly turned into various weapon modules and attached themselves to the surface of his body. He then fired at Han Xiao. Beams of light shot toward him. Han Xiao did not move, and the mechanical army around him summoned shields to block the attacks. Ah, he's running away. It's normal for him to have a reaction when he just woke up. Plus, he can't run away. Han Xiao said casually. SWY-001's last memory was of him being defeated by the World Tree Civilization. He probably still did not understand the situation and thought that he had been captured by the World Tree Civilization. Having expected this possibility, Han Xiao had removed the extra weapon modules of SWY-001 long ago. At the same time, he gathered the troops of the Mechanical Life Civilization and arranged a large number of troops around him. The two of them flew into the universe through the hole that SWY-001 had made. They immediately saw the endless mechanical army surrounding this place. SWY-001 was surrounded in the middle and was about to break out. At this time, dozens of apostle weapons suddenly charged out from the army. Han Zhao's mechanical force landed on them from a distance. These apostle weapons engaged SWY-001 and quickly gained the upper hand. After the battle with the three universal civilizations, Han Xiao had the Dimension Factory repair the damaged soldiers day and night. The paralyzed Apostle weapons were given priority to repair. Now, the Apostle weapons had basically recovered. Han Zhao's muscles bulged, and blood gushed out, weaving into strips of flesh. The mechanical soldiers beside him swarmed over, and the advanced mechanical deity immediately appeared. He did not hold back. He charged forward, pressed down on SWY-001, and gave a good beating. It was like two mechanical beasts fighting in space. Han Zhao had the upper hand in all aspects, while SWY-001's modules were in pieces. It was far from its peak state, so it was completely suppressed and could not fight back at all. Compared to the strength he had when he fought the three Universal Civilizations direct members not long ago, Han Zhao had already completed the challenge mission and received 520 billion experience, 8 character summon cards, and 6 new abilities. 2 of them were ordinary talents, 2 were advanced talents, 1 was a rare ability, and 1 was a molding talent. The molding talent came from Wernos and was called God's Enhancement. Its effect was to increase the strength of one's abilities to a certain extent, as well as greatly strengthen the bonuses of the various levels of God's trait transformation. At the same time, it also increased the bonuses of faith-type talents. Key of Adeptus Mechanicus was suitable for this. These missions also gave him 3 Universe Legendary points, which are number 1 beyond grade, creator of the greatest battle record in history, and source of fear of the 3 Universal Civilizations. Furthermore, after forcing the 3 Universal Civilizations troops to retreat and completing the mission requested by Manison, he obtained one of his abilities. Fu Ding's luck seemed to have been concentrated on this. He also obtained one of Manison's unique talents, which was called Mechanical Force Ultimate, Manison. His mechanical force was strengthened, greatly increasing his machinery affinity and mechanical force strength, as well as the attributes of his mechanical force and the upper limit of his energy. Although the unique talents were great, he had already collected 3 of Manison's unique talents, and he felt like he was becoming more and more like the Mecha Empire. These abilities increased his energy rank by a total of 2,740 ona. To be able to increase his energy rank by such a considerable amount at his current level, the bonus to his combat strength was obvious. Compared to when they were facing each other, he was more than just a little stronger. The 3 Universal Civilizations' continuous battles had become nutrients for his growth. When Han Zhao was at his peak, there was no suspense in the battle between him and the crippled SWY-001. The best way to convince someone was always with his fists. After a round of persuasion, SWY-001 was finally forced to calm down. While subduing SWY-001, Han Zhao sent a private message to explain the current situation. Stop resisting. This isn't the World Tree Civilization. We're another advanced civilization. You fell into our territory through a wormhole, and I picked you up. After explaining it over and over again, coupled with the deterrence of his fists, SW-001 finally stopped struggling and began communicating with him skeptically. In the quantum network, the data exchange between the two was completed in the blink of an eye. SWY-001 knew that Han Zhao had checked his memory device and also saw some information about the Galactic Society, so he basically believed what Han Zhao said. However, he immediately became anxious. I can't stay here. My civilization is still waiting for me. His voice was like the voices of countless people stacked together, giving off an inexplicable sense of emptiness. His memory was still stuck at the time when he was defeated and unconscious. He did not see the moment when the Karma Republic was completely destroyed. Han Zhao shook his head. I've checked your age. You've been drifting in the universe for a very long time. According to our time calculation, that was more than 600 years ago. I'm afraid your civilization has already been destroyed. SWY-001 froze, as if he had fallen into a daze. Protecting his civilization with his life was the most important logic he had written when he was born. It was also the meaning of his existence in this form. I need confirmation, SWY-001 replied with a buzzing sound. If you're willing to provide the coordinates of a universe, we can help you explore it. However, we also need your help. It's an equivalent exchange. Help. We're also experiencing the same threat. You're the only survivor we know of, so we need your help. Your civilization has been destroyed. If you want revenge, you can't do it alone. We can work together. Han Xiao explained it to him. If it's true, I'll agree. SWI-001 analyzed for a while and finally nodded. After all, he could not beat the other party, so he did not have much choice. Furthermore, in the underlying logic, there was a revenge rule to begin with. If his civilization was destroyed, he had to find a way to take revenge on the World Tree while protecting himself. If his civilization was really destroyed, he had nowhere to go. Working with the civilizations here to fight against the World Tree was also in line with his goal. Then, I'll organize a meeting between you and the ruler of this territory. I need you to convince them of some things and help them recognize the danger of the World Tree civilization. As he spoke, Han Xiao paused for a moment before continuing. I've given you a number, but you probably won't like it. You're a collective consciousness. How do you want me to call you? Just call me Herberlin. That's the name of my beyond grade, a main body. The communication between the two of them was extremely fast and efficient. Herberlin did not resist and allowed the apostle weapons to take him away. There was still a lot of information about the Galactic Society that he needed to understand, but he would not be allowed to freely access the internet. Han Xiao had already used the virtual technology as a precaution and blocked the internet function. Seeing this, Han Xiao deactivated the mechanical deity state and relaxed his body. It went smoother than I thought. It's probably because of my fists. As long as he could not control the other party, Herberlin would definitely run away and search for the answer on his own. If it were anyone else, it would not have been so easy to deal with. However, with powerful combat strength, this problem was easily solved. His methods were simple and crude, but effective. If he could not win against the other party would not be so easily convinced. Han Xiao opened the interface and took a look. The mission of Visitor from Afar was completed. The evaluation was based on the degree of repair of the body, which had reached a very high level. Although he had dismantled a lot of mechanical structures, Aurora's healing effect was amazing, which raised the evaluation. The reward of this mission itself was not high. The most useful thing was a Herberlin character summon card. The unknown impact of awakening Herberlin on the situation was the mission note. Just as Han Xiao was calculating the reward, Aurora slowly flew to his side with a curious expression. She did not know the content of the conversation between Han Xiao and Herberlin, nor did she know the other party's background. What did you say to him just now? What's up with this big guy? He comes from a lost civilization, a wanderer who lost his home. The details are a secret for now. I have other arrangements for him. Fisk, forget it if you don't want to say it. Aurora could tell that Han Xiao did not want to delve into it. She could not help but pout and snort. After a pause, Aurora said, "Oh, right. What about the underworld hero spirits that I revived? They're still on standby. Do you want me to remove their physical bodies? There's no need to remove them. Keep them as a secret mobile force. They'll come in handy one day. Is it to guard against the 3 universal civilizations?" Aurora probed. The outside world did not know what was going on between the Association and the 3 universal civilizations. That's a factor, but it's not the main point. Han Xiao shook his head. I've already talked to the leaders of the 3 universal civilizations. If nothing goes wrong, the 2 sides should temporarily stop and make peace. Aurora was surprised. What agreement did you guys come to? The 3 universal civilizations are actually willing to give in. The reason is a secret for now, so I can't tell you yet. However, I'll hold a regular meeting to explain the specific terms. You'll know then. More than half a month passed quickly. Under the high attention of the Galactic Society, the 3 universal civilizations and the Beyond Grade A Association seemed to have really stopped fighting. The 2 sides minded their own business. Just as all kinds of speculations were getting more and more rampant, the 3 universal civilizations, who had been pretending to be mute for more than half a month, finally released a joint statement, causing an earthquake in the entire Galactic Society. The three universal civilizations claimed that when the situation was about to go out of control, they took the initiative to give in. On one hand, they considered the safety of the galactic society. After much consideration, they finally chose to keep the peace and prevent the galactic society from falling into the flames of war. On the other hand, they said that they had reached a consensus with the association and had a reasonable way to deal with the virus technology. As for what it was, they did not give any details. The Beyond Grade A Association also gave them face and did not expose the three universal civilization statement, saying that this was how it was and that there was no conspiracy theory. At least on the surface, the reason for the three universal civilizations' large-scale military operation this time was the virtual mutiny virus technology. As long as this problem was solved, it would make sense for them to retreat. Even if their words were ambiguous, they could use confidentiality as a reason, and the galactic residents could not do anything about it. However, what caused an uproar among the galactic residents was the second half of the three universal civilization statement. They said that they would temporarily suspend the ban on the association and cancel the previous sanctions. The various organizations were shocked. They were clearly in a Cold War mode not long ago, and now they want to reconcile? What's going on? Did the three universal civilizations give up on solving the problem of individual strength imbalance? What kind of agreement did the two sides reach? Or were the three universal civilizations so afraid that they did not dare to make a move? Many people subconsciously thought of the scene of Black Star suppressing all the powerhouses of the three universal civilizations during the confrontation. Although they knew that the three universal civilizations would not stop because of Black Star's individual strength, they could not help but think in this direction. Could it be that the three universal civilizations were really afraid? Seeing the three universal civilizations and the Beyond Grade A Association quickly go from fighting each other to being at peace, the countless bystanders had mixed feelings. They felt a little dejected, as if their voices did not matter at all. The ruler and the strong changed the era. Regardless of whether it was good or bad, they could only accept it. However, although both sides expressed that they would stop fighting, the three universal civilizations were still aggressive at the beginning. This result undoubtedly made people feel that the Beyond Grade A Association had won this battle for a while. This was one of the few cases where a civilian organization forced the three universal civilizations to give in. The reputation of the Beyond Grade A Association, which had been suppressed, suddenly bounced back. All of a sudden, it was as if they had become the brightest kid in the galactic society. Although the voices of cursing the supers did not disappear completely, they were drowned out by the sea of rainbow farts. Many people were slapped in the face by this result and did not dare to go against the current mainstream opinion. They all quieted down and quietly went into hiding. On the other side, the most dumbfounded was still the Supercluster Alliance. They made up just like that. They're not going to break up anymore. If you don't fight, how are we going to get close to the association? Are we, the third party, going to be abandoned again? The taste of being a spare tire is so bitter. Chapter 1331. Beyond Grade A Association Headquarters, Planet Finn. Today was the first regular meeting after the three universal civilizations gave in. All the Beyond Grade A members were present early. No one was not curious about what agreement Black Star had reached with the three universal civilizations and were waiting for the president to give them an explanation. This is really sudden. Black Star completed the peace talks with the three universal civilizations without a word. I didn't receive any news at all, Kasuyi complained. I wonder what agreement the president reached with the three universal civilizations in private. With Black Star's personality, we shouldn't be the ones at a disadvantage, Kant said with an uncertain tone. Of course, no one present believed the announcement made by the three universal civilizations. They all knew that Black Star must have done some insider trading in private, but no one had found out what was going on. By the way, Ames, you're so close to Black Star. Did he tell you anything? Cisco turned and asked. He didn't tell me. Ames turned to Hela and said with a smile, but Hela might know. I'm not sure. I haven't seen him recently. Hela pursed her lips and shook her head. Everyone whispered to each other for a while, and Han Zhao's remote projection finally landed on the main seat. He looked around and smiled. Since everyone is here, let's get straight to the point. The main reason I gathered everyone here today is to tell you the agreement I reached with the three universal civilizations, as well as the next step of the association. Han Zhao glanced around. Seeing that everyone was listening to him attentively, he continued. The three universal civilizations agreed to a few of my conditions. They decided to lift the blockade and make up for our losses during this period. They'll also give us additional compensation. In addition, they'll recognize the official status of the Beyond Grade A Association and enjoy the same rights as the advanced civilizations. This will be written into the galactic law. At the same time, we'll get a highly autonomous territory at the edge of the explored universe. That's about it. As soon as he finished, the entire place was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. The Beyond Grade A members present were shocked and looked at Han Zhao in disbelief. It was not that this agreement was bad, but that it was too good. They did not expect that Black Star would be able to obtain such ridiculous benefits that even the three universal civilizations were willing to accept. A normal truce was still within the range of understanding, but the three universal civilizations were not giving in at all, but surrendering. Only when someone had their reproductive organs pinched by someone else would they compromise to this extent. Originally, everyone thought that it would be good enough if the three universal civilizations were willing to give them some compensation, but they did not expect such a surprise. With this, the problems that had been troubling the association were mostly solved, and they had much less to worry about. How did you do it? Kasui couldn't help but ask. Han Zhao vaguely glanced at the Beyond Grade as of the supercluster and said, I know that everyone is curious about the reason why the three universal civilizations gave in. But this matter is rather complicated, and we don't have a definite answer yet. Furthermore, these benefits are not given for free. It's part of the deal, and the price is that we have to help the three universal civilizations at certain times. Hearing this, everyone looked at each other. Seeing this, Han Zhao spread his hands. If you have any opinions, you can raise them. The foundation of our association's existence is to respect the attitude of all members. If you feel that it's not suitable, we could discuss it again. Biger immediately coughed and said, I think it's not bad. After all, we revivers have already died once. We can't enjoy the sanctum revival, so we don't have to take the risk of fighting. Of course, it's a good thing. Hearing this, many of the revivers nodded. Oathkeepers' lies were deeply rooted in their hearts. In their opinion, if they died again, they could only go to the underworld and live a lowly life. I thought I could start a massacre and teach the three universal civilizations an unforgettable lesson to repay them for what they did to me back then. I didn't expect that after a few hundred years, the three universal civilizations would become a bunch of cowards. Black Star, you two, what's there to negotiate? The three universal civilizations chose to give in, so they must be in trouble. We should beat them when they're down. You didn't even seize such a good opportunity. I thought you were a ruthless person, but I was wrong about you. Han Zhao raised his brows and let out a nasal sound. Dylan snorted, his tone not showing any weakness. I didn't expect you to not be the kind of guy I thought you were, but a wise man full of righteousness, foresight, and rationality. You deserve to be our leader. Han Zhao nodded in satisfaction, and his nasal voice deepened. Everyone immediately looked away in disdain, ignoring Dylan's voice. Kasui came out to smooth things over and said with a smile, These conditions are all surprises, so no one has any objections. However, Black Star, the three universal civilizations have only expressed their willingness to stop and make peace. They haven't acknowledged our independence yet. Are you sure they will fulfill the agreement? I still don't think they will compromise so easily. There's basically no problem, but we'll have to wait for a while. Han Zhao shook his head. He had already asked Herberlin to talk to the leaders of the three universal civilizations to increase his persuasiveness. When the three universal civilizations had some results in their actual exploration, it was time to fulfill the agreement. Furthermore, this matter had caused an uproar and was currently in the limelight. The three universal civilizations planned to deal with it coldly for a period of time and only announce this matter after the heat of public opinion had passed. I hope so. Kasui nodded and asked curiously, then what's the next development path of the association? Do you have any ideas? Han Xiao shook his head. Everyone, recover your strength first and continue to accumulate forces. As for the future, we'll talk about it after the three universal civilizations fulfill the agreement. He remembered another idea he had in the past. When their political status was recognized and the autonomous territory was in their hands, the association's reputation among the supers would rise to a new level. Perhaps they could create a country that belonged solely to the supers and absorb the free supers of the entire universe. The current association would then become the ruling parliament of the country. On one hand, it was to consider their future development. They had to expand the size of the organization and recruit more people. As the seedlings of the beyond grade, as the more supers there were, the better. On the other hand, it was to ensure their independence. Ordinary supers would have many worries living under the jurisdiction of the three universal civilizations. If they had a new place to go, they would have a choice, and there would always be people who were willing to become residents here. Furthermore, the conflict between the ordinary people and the supers was getting more and more intense. Everyone did not see eye to eye with each other. Perhaps it was not bad to give the supers a chance to live separately. It might be good for everyone. Of course, the three universal civilizations would definitely not be happy to see this. Before the threat of the world tree erupted, Han Xiao would not consider taking action. As long as it's a super, no race will reject them. Why does this behavior seem a little familiar? Han Xiao scratched his head. If he remembered correctly, this idea was a little like the character in a comic that was still serialized in his previous life. It should be the Annie who built the world of nations. Then what am I, the big boss? Han Xiao threw these random thoughts out of his mind and continued to discuss business with everyone. After talking for more than an hour, the meeting finally ended. Everyone left with excitement and relaxation. Han Xiao deactivated the remote projection. Just as he returned to his office, Philip appeared. Master Hum, you have a high-level encrypted message. It's from the Supercluster Alliance, Hum. Oh, looks like they can't hold it in anymore. Han Xiao opened the message and took a look. It was a message from the Supercluster Alliance inviting him to a meeting. He was not surprised. The association had originally cooperated with the Supercluster Alliance to fight against the three universal civilizations. Now that the three universal civilizations and the association had stopped fighting each other, the Supercluster Alliance, as the third party, was in a difficult position. Furthermore, the Supercluster Beyond Grade, as who had participated in the meeting earlier, must have sent the agreement back. The Supercluster Alliance was definitely anxious, afraid that the association and the three universal civilizations would work together again. Thus, they hurriedly came to test his attitude. 10 minutes later, in the meeting room of the Supercluster Alliance, the various leaders gathered and sat upright. Han Zhao's remote projection appeared in the room, and he immediately felt everyone's gazes. The Star Arc Civilization's leader said with a deep voice, "Black Star, we agreed to work together to fight against the three universal civilizations. What's going on now?" Han Xiao shrugged. The goal of the struggle is peace. The association has already achieved its goal, so there's no need to continue fighting against the three universal civilizations. This is good for the association. What about our alliance? Han Xiao calmly said, "Our previous alliance had a total of 4 conditions. Other than the first condition, which is to fight against the three universal civilizations, the other 3 are two-way resource sharing and cooperation. We can continue to cooperate in the future." The Star Arc Civilization's leader could not help but ask, "Then, what if the three universal civilizations have something to say? Will you break the alliance because of this?" Since the three universal civilizations have admitted that the association can keep the virtual virus technology, they've admitted that no one has the right to interfere with the association's internal affairs. Which galactic law did I violate by forming an alliance with you? So what if they have something to say? Han Xiao shrugged. Maybe we can change the first agreement and change the condition of joining forces against the three universal civilizations to that the association cannot take the initiative to attack the supercluster civilizations other than counterattacking. At the same time, the sanctum revival quota, I promised you will still be effective. Hearing this, everyone was a little surprised. They were prepared for Black Star to turn against them, but from the looks of it, Black Star seemed to be very easy to talk to. Han Xiao smiled and said, to put it bluntly, we don't trust the three universal civilizations, so we need to leave a way out. Therefore, we're willing to maintain a good relationship with the Supercluster Alliance. When the association was blocked, it was you guys who lent a helping hand. Personally, I'm also willing to continue cooperating, so I still have this bit of credibility. I see. The Star Arc Civilization's leader was relieved. Although it made it seem like an affair, this result was barely acceptable. The main thing was that Black Star did not intend to go back on his sanctum revival quota, so this was quite good. So what if we're two-timing? At least we still have the right to be stepped on. As long as it's comfortable, we can even accept a spare tire. After the parties involved expressed their opinions one after another, even if all kinds of conspiracy theories ran rampant, the situation quickly calmed down, and the galactic residents and the various large organizations slowly returned to their normal lives. The blockade was lifted, and the various channels of the association were reopened one after another, gradually returning to normal business. However, the plan to integrate the black market did not stop, and it was still carried out by the players. Something big happened every day, and the lives of ordinary people had to continue. The dispute between the three universal civilizations and the association also gradually became the topic of conversation after meals, no longer being talked about every day. However, under the surface of peace, undercurrents were surging. The three universal civilizations were secretly preparing for war and investigating. This set of wormhole data left behind by ES God was named World Tree Passage. With Han Zhao's reminder, the three universal civilizations were very careful in their exploration. So far, they had not encountered any life from the World Tree civilization. At the same time, the three universal civilizations listened to Han Zhao's suggestion and organized a joint expedition army, intending to enter the depths of the secondary dimensions to search for the so-called World Tree's main body. Secondary Dimension World, Dynasty Outpost. A huge expedition fleet was gathered here, undergoing the last inspection before departure. The dock was filled with soldiers of the three universal civilizations with serious expressions. Han Xiao stood on the dock and watched this scene. Harrison stood to the side with his backpack on his back, at a loss as to what to do. He said weakly, "Your Excellency Black Star, what is this fleet looking for? Why do I have to participate? To find something related to the fate of the explored universe." Han Xiao patted his shoulder. "Do I have to go?" Harrison was about to cry. He was still young and was not the old explorer from his previous life. Furthermore, the World Tree War had not broken out yet, so he could not ignore life and death. An expedition to the depths of the secondary dimensions was not an easy mission. Along the way, they would have to pass through countless strange secondary dimensions. Who knew what kind of situation they would encounter? If they did not deal with it properly, they would suffer heavy losses. Furthermore, communication was not convenient. They would be like a lone army that could not communicate with the rear. What are you afraid of? Didn't I leave you a lot of equipment? If you encounter danger, they will be enough to protect you. If not, didn't you bring a set of Lord's avatar and a throne? I can teleport over at any time. Han Xiao patted his head. I'm afraid that I won't be able to call you in time before I die. Harrison looked dejected. Furthermore, there are so many people participating. There's no point in adding me, right? Han Xiao was helpless and could not answer. In his previous life, Harrison had discovered the main body of the World Tree. But this time, who knew if the goddess of luck would favor him? Furthermore, the main body of the World Tree was not without protection. The surrounding secondary dimensions were filled with countless spawn races, which were extremely dangerous. When the fleet discovered the other party, the World Tree also discovered them. However, if they could not find the main body of the World Tree, their chances of winning were slim. Sending the expedition team in advance was already a step ahead. Han Xiao was currently the only outsider cooperating with the three universal civilizations to explore the World Tree. Other than Harrison, he had also chosen some trustworthy people to participate in the first batch of Secondary Dimensions expedition team. Most of them were mechanical lives, with some Black Spirit race members mixed in. After comforting Harrison for a while, the expedition fleet was finally ready. Harrison looked back 3 times with every step, but in the end, he still stepped onto the spaceship bravely. With the roar of the Secondary Dimensions dedicated engine, the joint expedition fleet slowly took off, turning into a flash of light and disappearing from everyone's sight, heading toward the unknown future. Chapter 1332. After sending off the expedition team, Han Xiao stood at the dock for a while. This time, Guzer, who was wearing a tall emperor's suit, walked over from behind and stood side by side. Guzer, who had a long beard and looked like Zhang Fei, took out a thick red cigarette from his shirt pocket. He rubbed it with his finger and lit the cigarette. He took a deep breath and exhaled a puff of green smoke. He smacked his lips and said, "That's right." He smacked his lips and said, "This is only the first batch. There will be a second and third expedition team in the future. The depths of the secondary dimensions are unpredictable. I hope the main body of the World Tree you mentioned really exists. Don't let the sacrifices die for nothing. Don't be too pessimistic. Maybe it'll be more dangerous than dangerous," Han Xiao replied casually. Guzer did not comment. He took out another cigarette from his pocket and handed it to Han Xiao. It's a premium product specially provided by the dynasty's upper echelons. You can't buy it on the market. Try it? I don't smoke anymore. Han Xiao waved his hand and rejected. Is that so? Guzer put away the cigarette, shook his head, and said, "Speaking of which, I've never heard of you having any hobbies. Don't you mechanics have any entertainment needs? Smoking and drinking are not as fun as robots." Han Xiao glanced at him. "Just say what you want. Can I talk to you if I don't have anything?" Guzer shrugged. Although Black Star had beaten them up not long ago, both sides had made peace. Fighting before the battle was official business, and there was no grudge between them. Most beyond grade as admired the strong, and the direct descendants of the three universal civilizations were no exception. They all had a certain level of respect for Black Star's achievements and abilities. "Next time, I'm quite busy." Han Xiao patted Guzer's shoulder. Guzer sighed and said, "All right, I'm here to tell you that His Excellency the Ruler is waiting for you online. He wants to talk to you about something. Why didn't you say so earlier?" Han Xiao turned around and walked into the dynasty's outpost base. He went to the private communication room and answered Marbruce's call. "Ruler Marbruce, what's the matter? Our exploration has made some progress. The probes have collected the exact coordinates, and the multidimensional sky opening transportation device can already reach the territory of the World Tree civilization. However, we have no intention of sending troops for the time being." Han Xiao nodded. The Radiant Federation's multidimensional sky opening transportation device had extremely high strategic value and was very useful. It was necessary to use it here. Unfortunately, the three universal civilizations only allowed him to interfere in limited areas. Most of them only treated him as a consultant and did not allow him to use the World Tree channel to send anything. "What can I do for you?" "We plan to bury some detection equipment and strategic killing weapons in the uninhabited areas. For this, we need more information, such as the star map of the other side and the division of forces. It's inefficient for us to slowly detect these things, and as the detection range expands, the risk of encountering the World Tree civilization will increase." "So?" Han Xiao raised his eyebrows. Marbruce pondered and said, "We plan to try to connect to the other party's network after the preparations are done and steal some superficial information. So we're here to ask for your opinion." Han Xiao thought for a while and said, "If it's just superficial information, as long as we enter from an unimportant terminal node, do a good job of disguising the data and erasing the traces, and let the beyond grade as analyze the other party's network coding language first. The risk will be controlled. This was not invading the other party's network, but browsing the network information with an alias. So the difficulty was not high. The World Tree civilization also had a communication system in the form of a quantum network, which was basically the standard of advanced civilizations. However, the cornerstone of the communication method was not the quantum network, but a mental network called the treetop connection that the World Tree came with. However, the latter was too transparent and monotonous, not as diverse as the quantum network. Then let the beyond grade A mechanic take the lead and supplement the computing power of the main artificial intelligence to collect the superficial information of the other party's network. When the time comes, the information obtained will be shared with you. After chatting for a while, Bruce hung up the communication, mainly to inform Han Xiao of the exploration plan. Han Xiao put down the communicator and curled his lips. Other than the secondary dimension expeditionary army, they won't let me interfere in any other exploration work. It seems like they're still on guard. The current situation was far from the stage of unity in his previous life. Although it was not to the extent of scheming against each other, they could not completely trust each other like in his previous life and cooperate without any worries. After leaving the Dynasty outpost and returning to the army base, Han Xiao summoned Philip and issued a special summoning order to the hundreds of beyond grade A seeds in the army. Because the three universal civilizations strictly controlled the World Tree channel, he could not make many preparations at the moment. Other than increasing the Void God's trait transformation and making the production line explode all day long, he could only wait for the players to become rich and slowly provide him with EXP. Therefore, he planned to use the advantage of the interface to give the hundreds of beyond grade A seeds who had transferred to the army a year ago a long-term special training, hoping that a new beyond grade would be born from this group of people and strengthen the high-end strength of the association. After sending the message, Han Xiao left the room and walked around the base for a while before suddenly bumping into Jenny. Han Xiao could not help but stop and ask in confusion, "Ames has already returned to Floating Dragon Island. Why are you still here?" Jenny crossed her arms and snorted. "It wasn't easy for me to get a holiday because of the refuge. I don't want to go back so quickly to work overtime. Lames take care of things herself. I happen to have some free time." Han Xiao understood. "So you've rested well. No wonder your hairline has recovered a little. I almost didn't recognize you. You don't have to say it if you don't know how to speak. No one will treat you as a mute." Jenny rolled her eyes. "Then rest well at my place. However, if Ames comes to ask me for someone, don't expect me to help you." Han Xiao shook his head, smiled, and walked past him. Just as he was about to leave, he suddenly heard Jenny behind him speak again. This time, her tone was a little hesitant. I haven't seen Harrison in a while. I sent him a message, but he didn't reply. Where did he go?" Han Xiao turned around and looked at her, a little surprised. "The two of you really hooked up? I thought you rejected him. Looks like you're the same as Ames, the honest type." Bullsh asterisk T. Jenny was furious. "There's nothing between me and that annoying guy. I was just curious." Han Xiao did not believe her at all. He casually said, "He went on a secret mission. You probably won't see him for a long time." "Secret mission?" Jenny hesitated for a moment. "Is it dangerous?" "Of course," Han Xiao replied rather straightforwardly. Jenny choked. After hesitating for 2 seconds, she softly said, "Then help me tell him." "Tell him what?" Han Xiao immediately became alert. "Stupid sister, be careful. Don't raise a flag so casually and lower Harrison's survival rate." Jenny gritted her teeth, turned her head, and stubbornly said, "Ask him when he's going to pay me back the money he owes me." "TSK, you don't mean what you say." Han Xiao mercilessly exposed Jenny. "Forget it if you don't want to help me ask." Jenny flew into a rage out of humiliation. "I'll ask him, but I might not be able to contact him now. Let's talk about it another time." Han Xiao waved his hands, turned around, and left. When he turned the corner, he turned his head to take a look and saw that Jenny was still standing in the same place with a disappointed expression on her face. "TSK, and you say there's nothing going on?" Han Xiao smacked his lips. Just as he was about to leave, Philip suddenly jumped out with a surprised expression. Master, another army officer has become a beyond grade A Let me see. Han Xiao was overjoyed and immediately switched to the surveillance interface. In the image, a figure burning with pugilist flames was sitting cross-legged in space like a small star. It was Lodehair, who had been in seclusion for decades. After holding it in for so long, this guy finally gave birth. Tui, he advanced. Han Xiao was greatly relieved. Originally, he thought that Lodehair would still need a few more years to complete the transformation, but he did not expect him to break through this boundary so quickly. Did he see how I defeated the 3 universal civilizations and feel inspired? Immediately switching to the king, Han Xiao teleported to Lodehair's personal dojo. As soon as he looked up, he saw Lodehair, who was completing the last step of his evolution. Han Xiao summoned his mechanical army and set up energy shielding devices around him. After waiting for a while, the pugilist flames on Lodehair's body slowly retracted, almost like a solid crystal. Just by looking at it, one could feel an oppressive sharpness. The attributes of a pugilist's energy were varied, and Lodehair's core energy attributes were sharp and armor-piercing, mainly for lethality. Lodehair opened his eyes, looked around, and immediately saw Han Xiao. He quickly flew down and landed in front of Han Xiao. Your Excellency Black Star, I did not disappoint you. Lodehair's attitude was still respectful, not losing himself because of the sudden increase in strength. Han Xiao squeezed his shoulder, smiled, and said, You're already a beyond grade A, so it's fine to address you as an equal. What do you think? Do you want to start your own organization? I'm still willing to be the blade in your shadow. If not for your nurturing, I wouldn't have what I have today. Lodehair shook his head, still using the honorific. Beyond grade, as usually would not continue to be subordinates. But Lodehair had thoughts of repaying his debt. Furthermore, the Black Star Corps was also an exception, and there were already 2 beyond grade as in it. With the previous example, the latecomers would be more accepting. Don't belittle yourself. I helped you because you have potential. As Han Xiao spoke, he punched Lodehair's chest, making a dull thud. Lodehair could not help but take a step back, rubbing his aching chest. Seeing this, Han Xiao shook his head. You have to continue training your physique. You're still too weak now. In the eyes of ordinary people, beyond grade A is already the peak, but in the eyes of veterans like us, this is just the beginning. You just stepped into this threshold, and there's still a lot to train. I can fight dozens of new beyond grades like you. I've seen the live broadcast of your confrontation with the 3 universal civilizations. I have no doubts about that. Lodehair nodded. He was also impressed by Han Xiao's performance back then, and his heart was filled with respect. Since you become a beyond grade A, I'll give you a gift. I'll get you a universal treasure weapon in a while. What type do you want? If you don't want mechanical equipment, I can also ask a mage to create an enchanted equipment for you, Han Xiao said. Lodehair thought for a while. A pair of daggers will do. All right, after you've thought about it, send me your specific requirements, and I'll customize them for you. Han Xiao smiled and suddenly changed the topic. By the way, speaking of which, I have a mission for you. Where to? Who to kill? How long will it last? Lodehair immediately became serious, showing his professionalism. Sai, don't always fight and kill. It's not good. Han Xiao coughed and said, There's a pugilist genius with extraordinary potential who's receiving special training here. He already has a beyond grade A as his teacher. I hope you can train him for a while and pass on your experience to him. Carrot's bottlenecks were all in the early stages, and he could only level up quickly by accumulating insights. Different experts provided different insights, and Yining was almost squeezed dry. The freshly minted Lodehair was like a leek field that had yet to be harvested, a new tool. All right, I'll do my best to teach him. Lodehair nodded, but he was also curious. A pugilist genius who could make the army commander specifically find a beyond grade A as his teacher. How shocking was his potential? This was a bluish-green space. The ground was made up of bluish-green tree roots that were intertwined with each other. The ground was translucent, and one could see energy bubbles flowing within the roots. It was filled with a verdant vitality. In the center of the space, a large number of roots rose up, forming a huge throne. A tall figure sat on it with his eyes closed as if he was in a deep sleep. Vine-like roots crawled all over his body, and blue and green fluorescent lights flowed around his body, making him look like lively little fairies. Suddenly, this figure trembled slightly and slowly opened his eyes. He raised his hand and gently patted the armrest of the seat. In the next moment, the roots on the ground moved on their own. They intertwined with each other and transformed into a flower bud. Then, the flower bud opened and a tall figure appeared out of thin air. She was dressed in a gorgeous robe and walked out from inside. As soon as he appeared, this tall figure bowed strangely to the figure on the throne and said in a low voice, "What orders do you have?" Hearing this, the figure on the throne leaned forward slightly and slowly said, "The information network has detected an abnormal network. There is an abnormal reaction in the information form alert network. There might be an unknown information collection that has interacted with us. Perhaps someone is spying on us. Go and investigate." Understood, Your Excellency, Tree King. Chapter 1333. Somewhere in the World Tree Civilization, an artificial teleportation wormhole suddenly appeared and expanded. A few unmanned engineering ships sailed out and quickly set up shielding devices and communication bases. After the temporary base station was completed, the three direct beyond grade A mechanics from the three universal civilizations used this as a springboard to send the Veda over. In the data field, the quantum souls of Guardian Romo, quantum demon Judith, and the others appeared. In their vision was the quantum network node that was connected into a bright sea of stars. Pay attention to the data disguise. If there are any abnormalities, immediately disconnect the connection. Judith sternly exhorted him. After the initial preparations, the three universal civilizations officially carried out the network intelligence theft plan today. They sent out three direct mechanics to use the computing power of the main artificial intelligence of each civilization to browse the World Tree Civilization's network. The World Tree channel was a springboard. Now, the wormhole coordinates that the three universal civilizations had explored were not only the data left behind by ES God. To be safe, they changed locations almost every time they attacked, and they rarely used the same wormhole coordinates again. This was the first time this coordinate was used. They planned to temporarily seal it after stealing the network intelligence. The three of them did not have the time to waste. Using the basic coding language that they had deciphered not long ago, they cooperated with their teammates to infiltrate a quantum network node and began to collect data on a large scale, searching for public information on the network. Every second, a huge amount of data was packed and uploaded to the high encryption information processing library temporarily opened by the three universal civilizations' main artificial intelligence. The three universal civilizations monitored the situation remotely, and their efficiency was extremely fast. It did not take long for them to complete the operation. The engineering ship immediately dismantled and retrieved all the devices, leaving behind a few strange-looking bombs on the spot before returning to the explored universe through the wormhole. After the engineering ship returned, the three universal civilizations closed the World Tree channel on the other side of the wormhole. The artificial wormhole quickly shrank and disappeared. Then, the bombs that had been left in this area in advance exploded at the right time. Chaotic energy waves spread out, covering this area and erasing all traces. Peace was restored in the area, as if nothing had happened. After an unknown period of time, a spatial rift suddenly appeared, and a translucent blue-green root stretched out from it. It was extremely large. Ripples appeared on the surface of the root, and a fleet flew out. At first, it was a little blurry, like a phantom. When it completely left the root, the appearance of the fleet suddenly solidified. This is the abnormal reaction area shown by the information form alert network. Holy Tree Emissary. Do you want to start the inspection? In the command room of the main ship, the captain stood beside a tall figure and respectfully asked for instructions. This tall figure was called Barbani, and it had a ferocious appearance. It looked like some kind of arthropod. It was wearing battle armor, and there was a weak blue-green energy around it. It was not the same species as the crew around it. Within the World Tree civilization, the Holy Tree Emissaries were a special group. They had a high status and were one of the executors of the highest will. Only individuals who had a deep connection with the World Tree could take on the role. They could use some of the World Tree's abilities, such as fast travel, physical transformation, and so on. Activate the information form camera and see what's going on here. Barbani's voice was short and sharp. This kind of device could retrace what had happened in an area at the information state level. The higher the power, the longer the retrace time, and the clearer the details. Once the order was given, the fleet quickly got to work. Light green screens scanned the surroundings, but there was no reaction from the areas they scanned. Barbarian. Barbarian, bard, barbarian, 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 barbarian. The captain glanced at the scan results and quickly came to a conclusion. Even the traces of the older information form have disappeared, which proves that the outsiders have mastered a certain level of information form technology. The level of their civilization is not low. Looks like we have new prey. Barbani was excited. The captain glanced at the time and analyzed. Judging from the time difference between us and the scene, the intruder's goal may be to enter our quantum network and steal information. That's a good thing. Barbani didn't care. He wasn't worried about the information being leaked on the internet at all. The higher-ups wouldn't be able to find out the key secrets. At the same time, it was also a layer of bait. The information form warning network covered the entire information collection of the World Tree civilization. It could detect if an outsider was spying on it. As long as it was entangled with the information collection, it would send out a warning. However, it was only limited to the alarm, and there was no way to steal the other party's information. Therefore, they could only discover that there was an outsider spying on them, but they did not know the other party's specific situation. However, this was not a problem. The World Tree itself had the characteristics of a high-dimensional information body. The more outsiders knew of its existence, or the deeper the interference between the two sets of information, the more obvious the connection would be. As long as the interaction reached a certain standard, the World Tree would be able to send out a revelation and sense the direction of the other party's information collection. Then, it would send a long-distance team to search in that direction. They would eventually find the other party. This was also like the sole connection of a universal treasure. It could be located remotely, but the relationship was reversed. Most universal treasures found it difficult to establish a soul connection. They were extremely cold, and even if they acknowledged their masters, they would only accept them half-heartedly. The Evolution Cube and the Space-Time Amber were both like this, but the World Tree was a universal treasure that did not reject anyone. However, outsiders could only rub against it and would not be able to obtain any substantial benefits from it. Instead, they would expose themselves. This was similar to how if you said my name, I would be able to know you. It was similar to the characteristics of some information life forms in the universe, as if it had divinity. Therefore, the information on the quantum network was a kind of bait to catch the fish in the universe that had the ability to discover them and find prey. However, the information on the network was not fake data. It was indeed real information left behind by the daily activities of countless people. It was just that all the secrets about the World Tree itself were strictly restricted and not allowed to be uploaded. All right, your mission is complete. Barbani let out a sharp laugh. I'll suggest that the Tree King activate all the information perceivers in the future form to see if he can foresee the information of this group of outsiders in advance. Let's go. As soon as he said that, the blue-green energy on his body suddenly surged. The huge roots that were quietly lying at the side seemed to have received a signal. They suddenly curled up and swallowed the fleet before quickly retracting into the spatial rift. The next moment, the spatial rift quickly closed as if it had never existed. A few days later, on a secret training planet in the Black Star Corps territory, Han Xiao floated in outer space and looked down at the two meteors chasing each other on the ground. They collided time and time again, leaving huge craters on the ground. Dust and sand billowed. One of them was Load Hair, and the other was Carrot, who was undergoing special training. Load Hair controlled his strength and constantly trained Carrot in actual combat. While imparting his martial arts insights, he was also practicing his precise control of his skyrocketing strength. Carrot was like a sponge, rapidly absorbing the essence and enriching himself. After finding the right cultivation method, this guy's improvement will be rapid. Han Xiao, who was watching the battle from above, nodded in satisfaction. Not only Carrot, he had also been training the other beyond grade A seeds in the past few days. He taught them according to their aptitude and provided customized cultivation plans. The effect was not bad. He felt that if this continued for a long time, many seeds should be able to sprout. Beep, beep. At this moment, his communicator rang. Han Xiao took a look. It was a message from the three universal civilizations. Inside was the information about the World Tree civilization that they had stolen from the network. It had been fully analyzed. He raised his eyebrows and immediately focused his attention on the book. Because the players' intelligence channels were limited, it was very difficult for them to touch on high-level secrets. His understanding of the World Tree civilization came from the war period in his previous life, and it was basically common knowledge at that time. He knew very little about the situation of the World Tree civilization at this point in time, and this information would help him deepen his understanding. When there is no war, the daily life of the World Tree civilization is similar to that of the Galactic Society. Speaking of which, in my previous life, the three universal civilizations have always been dealing with invasions and have never attacked the territory of the World Tree civilization. This is the first time I've seen a detailed star map of their territory. Han Xiao looked through it carefully and realized that it was all ordinary information. None of it was as important as the secrets of the World Tree's main body that he had provided. At the end of the message, he found a note from the three universal civilizations, indicating that they would fulfill the agreement after some time and acknowledge the association's position. Although it hasn't verified the accuracy of the secrets I provided, the other ordinary information matches up. The three universal civilizations shouldn't doubt me anymore. As he was reading the message, his communicator suddenly rang again. Han Xiao took a look. It was a message from Oathkeeper, and the content made his heart tighten. Destiny's Child suddenly had an abnormal reaction. Han Xiao's eyes twitched. If you remember correctly, the last time Destiny's Child had an abnormal reaction was when the intelligent plague broke out in advance. Furthermore, it had created a new batch of subbodies, and one of them was in his hands. This was something that Oathkeeper had told him personally after he had built a good relationship with him. At this juncture, Destiny's Child had caused trouble again. He felt that it was definitely not a good thing. Chapter 1334. Ancient Star Desert, Holy Covenant's Secret Base. A light flashed, and Han Xiao, who was wearing the King mechanical suit, was teleported to the exclusive throne teleportation platform. Law and Fei were already waiting there. Your Excellency, Black Star. The two of them greeted him. Where's Oathkeeper? Han Xiao looked around. He's waiting for you in Destiny's Child's laboratory. It happened very suddenly. Please follow us. The two of them did not say much and led the way. Han Xiao followed them all the way to their destination. Walking into the laboratory, the room was full of busy operators. Han Xiao saw Destiny's Child locked in a transparent container and Oathkeeper standing next to the container at a glance. At this time, Destiny's Child had already woken up from his deep sleep. His body was curled up and trembling nonstop. White noise-like spots kept flashing, like a projection when the signal was bad, becoming very blurry. Oathkeeper was releasing soul flame, seemingly comforting the other party. The experimenters in the room were operating the instrument with sweat all over their foreheads, operating the binding field and reality anchor at full power. What's the situation now? Han Xiao came to the instrument and looked at the various parameters. He was curious. Oathkeeper frowned. Destiny's Child has woken up and is in the midst of an information state disturbance. The amplitude is the highest so far, almost breaking through the containment and transforming into a high-dimensional information state. It's not over yet. Have you found a reason? I'm not sure yet. We can only communicate with him after he stabilizes. Hearing this, Han Xiao snapped his fingers and summoned a set of stability anchors. He arranged them around to provide assistance. At the same time, he carefully sized up Destiny's Child. This was the first time he had seen his true body. Every time Destiny's Child activated his ability, it would cause an information state disturbance phenomenon, causing the birth of subbodies randomly throughout the universe. Rhodey, who had been receiving treatment, was one of the subbodies awakened after the last disturbance. He had already found a way to stop the transformation process. At this time, Destiny's Child suddenly stopped trembling and turned to look at Han Xiao, as if he was observing curiously. He suddenly raised his hands and pressed them on the inner wall of the container, releasing a happy psychic wave. Everyone heard a burst of childlike laughter out of thin air. Destiny's Child just stared at Han Xiao like this. Not long after, the flickering body gradually stabilized and returned to calmness. Seeing this, Oathkeeper stopped what he was doing and looked surprised. How did you solve it as soon as you arrived? He seems to like you a lot. This is the first time we've met. Aren't you being too unreserved? Speaking of which, why does your tone sound like you've been robbed of your love? What nonsense are you talking about? Han Xiao teased Oathkeeper, but he was also secretly surprised. Destiny's Child seemed to have an inexplicable closeness to him. Could it be because of his primal Esper ability entity affinity and perfect energy affinity constitution? This is possible. After all, the primal chaos mysterious energy has thought that I'm handsome more than once and even wanted to take advantage of me. Perhaps to primal Esper ability entities, these two specializations were like the attraction of catmint to felines. No wonder Destiny's Child was fascinated by me the moment he saw me. Who told him to be so attractive to energy life forms? Han Xiao muttered to himself for a while, then raised his hand and knocked on the container. Destiny's Child immediately imitated him, and the two of them happily interacted. This scene made Oathkeeper feel a little annoyed. In the past, Destiny's Child liked him the most, and he would personally take care of the daily comforting work. He did not expect that Black Star would only come once, and Destiny's Child, whom he had nurtured for many years, would immediately ignore him. The most infuriating thing was that even before Black Star appeared, Destiny's Child had never been so close to him or so proactive. It was clearly me. Never mind, let's not talk about this. After looking at it sourly for a while, Oathkeeper finally spoke. All right, no matter what the reason is, it's enough that it's stabilized. I'll ask it what's going on. As he spoke, he pushed Han Xiao away, gathered soul flame, and communicated with Destiny's Child. A few seconds later, the soul ripple spread out again, and Han Xiao heard Destiny's Child's intermittent words. I feel the feedback of the subbody, the convergence of information, threat. Following Destiny's Child's narration, chaotic and blurry scenes appeared in Han Xiao's mind. Han Xiao's eyes narrowed. In these intricate images, he saw information about the world tree, such as the image of the world tree's roots stretching across the starry sky, or a group of people in robes surrounded by blue-green energy sitting on the ground and meditating. Oathkeeper did not know about the existence of the world tree, so he was confused. What are these? Wait, let me ask a few questions. Han Xiao did not have the time to explain to him. He raised a few questions that did not make sense, and he quickly got a response. After listening to Destiny's Child's answer, Han Xiao's thoughts raced as he pieced together the information and analyzed it. Destiny's Child's sudden abnormal reaction originated from the world tree. The two sides were entangled at the information form level, and it sensed that the world tree was using a certain method to locate the explored universe. The reason why it sensed it was because of the subbodies. The subbodies that it had produced were all randomly distributed in the entire universe. Not only the explored universe, but even the world tree also had a portion of Destiny's Child subbodies that had awakened the ability to foresee. To Destiny's Child, these sub-bodies were equivalent to its eyes, ears, and antennae that collected information from the outside world. Not long ago, the sub-bodies of the world tree had activated their foresight ability. Because the medium was related to the information collection of the explored universe, the two sides had intersected. Because this was where the main body was, the warning mechanism was immediately triggered. Thus, Destiny's Child activated its ability to foresee and share the memories and vision of the sub-bodies. During this process, Destiny's Child felt the threat of a natural enemy from the world tree and even predicted the possibility of it being devoured by the world tree. It almost wanted to transform into a high-dimensional information form and escape, which was why it had reacted so abruptly. So, the world tree is using foresight to sense the explored universe. The three universal civilizations have already exposed themselves? Han Xiaoxin's heart tightened. As expected, as long as they came into contact, the situation would be irreversible, and they would soon notice each other. The World Tree civilization was stronger than the three universal civilizations. Even the three universal civilizations in his previous life did not understand all the abilities and technologies of the World Tree. It was too idealistic to completely hide their tracks. In his previous life, the three universal civilizations were beaten to a pulp. Even if they were lucky enough to win in the end, they did not completely understand the World Tree. The three universal civilizations were not clear about some of the special technologies that were not used in war, such as the Information Form Warning Network. Because it was the World Tree that took the initiative to invade, the Information Form Warning Network used to prevent outsiders from spying on them was basically useless. Even the three universal civilizations did not know about it, let alone the players in his previous life. The only good news now is that the World Tree civilization only sensed the existence of outsiders and did not have much information, so they used information form methods to search for them. As a result, they intersected and were detected by Destiny's Child. Han Zhao's thoughts raced. Fortunately, Destiny's Child had scattered his sub-bodies all over the galaxy. Otherwise, he would not even know if he was discovered. He did not want to be caught off guard while he was still foolishly spying on the information. Destiny's Child called the World Tree its natural enemy. One was a primal Esper ability entity, and the other was a space wonder. Both of them had information form abilities, but their focus was different. According to Destiny's Child's explanation, it could share the information of the sub-body's contact. Because the sub-bodies were connected to the World Tree, they could observe the overall movements of the World Tree civilization in real time to a certain extent. However, there was also the risk of being exposed. Only when the sub-bodies actively used their foresight abilities and intertwined with information form could the main body use this as a disguise and take the opportunity to obtain the information the sub-bodies had. Otherwise, it would be easy for the World Tree to discover it. Even so, Destiny's Child was probably the only low-risk channel to monitor the World Tree's movements. It was more convenient, secretive, and efficient than the three universal civilizations' detection methods. Such an intelligence channel was a pleasant surprise, and there was no reason to ignore it. Han Xiao thought for a while and said with a deep voice through the mental connection, "If you don't want to be devoured by the World Tree, helping us is the best choice. Only by eliminating the other party can we remove the threat once and for all. Otherwise, even if you escape far away, there will still be risks." Hearing this, Destiny's Child's body shook, and his voice was ethereal. "How can I help you?" Under the premise of hiding yourself, monitor the other party's movements as much as possible and tell me everything. "I can." Destiny's Child did not refuse. He suddenly clasped his hands together, and a small white ball of light separated from his body and floated in the container. It floated toward Han Xiao and stuck to the inner wall. Han Xiao understood what he meant and raised his brows. "This is for me? Use it to create sub-bodies to extend my senses." In the mental connection, Destiny's Child explained the use of this ball of light. When it activated its ability, it could give birth to sub-bodies in the entire universe, or it could also give birth to sub-bodies in a designated area. However, there was a precondition for the latter. It needed to use its own energy to encircle an area in advance and turn this area into an independent information collection before it could designate the birthplace of the subbodies. To put it simply, this was like a horse race, or it could be said that it was like a dog peeing to mark the territory. Just as Han Xiao finished listening to Destiny's Child's explanation, the interface suddenly had a notification. You have triggered the mission, Destiny's Child's help. Mission introduction. Destiny's Child has a very good impression of you. Because it feels threatened, it has decided to ask you for help. Please do one thing. Mission requirements. Head to the designated location and use Destiny's Child's energy to circle an area large enough. Reward, 120 billion EXP, plus 25 Destiny's Child favorability. 1 random reward, milestone talent. Infiltrate the enemy camp. Infiltrate the enemy camp. When you move in the enemy's territory, it will be harder for you to be noticed. At the same time, you will receive a 3% bonus to all stats. You want me to go to the World Tree Civilization? Han Xiao was stunned. By limiting the birth range of Destiny's Child subbodies to the World Tree Civilization's territory, the more subbodies there would be, the more information he would be able to obtain. Although there was a time limit to the ability to mark the territory, it was calculated in years, which was enough for long-term use. It seems like I'm the only one most suitable for this kind of agile job. Looks like I'll have to ask the 3 universal civilizations to go to the World Tree Civilization. Han Xiao nodded. He told Oathkeeper to temporarily open the container and took out the light. As soon as he touched it, the light entered his palm and turned into an imprint that stored the energy that Destiny's Child had lent him. What's going on? What are you guys talking about? Oathkeeper had a puzzled look on his face as he continued to wonder. Han Xiao thought for a while, pulled Oathkeeper to the side, and briefly explained the situation. You're saying that the 3 universal civilizations have discovered an even stronger unknown civilization? Oathkeeper was surprised. He then understood the whole story. No wonder the 3 universal civilizations gave in so much. So that's what happened. Keep this to yourself. It's not suitable to tell others for the time being. Remember to keep it a secret. Han Xiao said with a deep voice. With the ability of Destiny's Child, he naturally could not avoid Oathkeeper. Only by letting him know the truth and understand the importance of this matter would he cooperate. In addition, Oathkeeper's character had been tested and was quite trustworthy, so there was no harm in letting him know. Don't worry, I won't tell anyone about this. Oathkeeper's expression was serious. He suddenly paused and asked softly, You mentioned in the regular meeting that the 3 universal civilizations recognize the association's position, so we'll have to help at some point. Is this what you're referring to? Han Xiao nodded. That's right. If a war breaks out, the association's members will have to participate in the war with all their strength to fight against foreign enemies. This is the deal. Plus, we don't have many choices, so I need you to prepare more Sanctum keys. I understand your plan. I'll fully cooperate with you. Oathkeeper exhaled. If the Beyond Grade has fought with all their strength, they would probably suffer heavy casualties. Blackstar most likely wanted to use this opportunity to show the truth of the unlimited Sanctum revival. As someone who knew the truth, to him, this was indeed a very feasible plan. Just as he was thinking, Han Xiao suddenly patted him on the shoulder in relief. Then do a good job. After it's done, the organization won't mistreat you. Oathkeeper, Tisk, I was so busy digesting the information that I forgot to speak. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.